Since I was a child, I've been the dahua of the family, helping my brother and sister-in-law raise their 3 kids. At 28, I was diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer. When my mother came to see me, the first thing she said was, "If you're gone, who will take care of your brother's children?" My sister-in-law also chimed in with a sigh, "My eldest hasn't even started middle school yet, who will tutor them? Can't you hold on until after their college entrance exams?" On the day I died, the whole family was busy celebrating the 1-month feast for my brother and sister-in-law's 4th child. No one noticed when I took my last breath. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day I was to fill out my college application. My mother came in with a glass of milk, smiling, and said, "Ting Ting, just apply to the normal school in the city. It's close to home, and you can still come back on weekends to look after the children." I looked at my mom's face and smiled. "Okay, Mom. I'll listen to you." As soon as my mom went out, I immediately changed my college application to a school over 2,000 kilometers away. "Ting Ting, just apply to the city's normal university. It's close to home. Your sister-in-law is trying for a 3rd child, and you can come back every weekend to help with the 1st and 2nd ones. Since you're studying education, taking care of the kids is exactly what you're trained for." In my previous life, I hesitated and thought about applying to an out-of-province university. My mother burst into tears on the spot, saying she had to run the family's small store. My sister-in-law had to work, and if I left, there would be no one to help my brother take care of the kids. My heart softened, and I applied to the city's normal university, a 40-minute drive from home. Then came 10 years of nightmare, still being exploited until the day I died. I took a deep breath. On the application form, I filled in the code for the city's normal university. My mother smiled and said, "That's right, Mom knew you were sensible." I smiled too. As soon as my mother went out with the empty cup, I immediately pulled up the application modification page. From outside the door came my brother Sulei's voice, "Ting Ting, Debeo is crying, come and soothe him." I didn't move. In my past life, I would have opened the door and rushed out immediately. Debeo is only 2 years old now, and when he cries, he's loud. It broke my heart, but now, hearing that crying, I feel nothing at all. In my previous life, I raised 3 children alone, and by my mid-20s I was already exhausted, with a full head of white hair. In this life, I'm done serving them. "Ting Ting," Sule called out again, his tone impatient. "What are you doing? Can't you hear the baby crying?" I opened the door. My brother, Sule, was standing in the hallway holding Debeo in a completely wrong position, but I couldn't be bothered to correct him. My sister-in-law, Jean Min, was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through short videos with her legs crossed, not even looking up. Without a word, I reached out and took Debeo into my arms. As soon as Debeo was in my arms, he stopped crying. My brother let out a sigh of relief. "You're the only one who can handle him." After saying that, he turned and went back to his room. As soon as the door closed, the sound of game effects came from inside. My sister-in-law stood up from the sofa. "Ting Ting, your brother and I are going out for dinner tonight. You'll need to take care of Debeo. Erbo is still small, so there's not much to do. Just remember to give him 1 feeding." I looked at Zhang Min's smiling face and thought of my previous life. In that past life, I always said yes, and then the 2 of them would stay out partying until early morning. I was left alone with the 2 kids, Debeo throwing tantrums, Erbo crying. I couldn't even get a sip of water. "Okay," I said with a smile. My sister-in-law nodded with satisfaction and went back to her room to change. I put Debeo on the crawling mat. Debeo reached out his arms for me to hold him, but I ignored him and turned to pour some water. Debeo started crying behind me. I didn't look back. My mother poked her head out from the kitchen and frowned. "Ting Ting, Debeo is crying. Why aren't you soothing him?" I pretended to be innocent. "Mom, Debeo is too heavy. I can't carry him. Your brother has the strength. Let him soothe him." My mother's face darkened. "Your brother is a grown man. How would he know how to soothe a child?" Here we go again. My father and brother are grown men, so they don't have to lift a finger. My sister-in-law is an outsider, so it's awkward to ask her to help. Only I am like a loyal, long-suffering house servant. I didn't reply. I took my glass of water back to my room and locked the door. Debeo was crying hysterically, and soon I heard my brother and sister-in-law arguing outside the door. After a few exchanges, my mother finally put down the vegetable she was washing and went to soothe Debeo. I took out the revised college application again and read it through. Haicheng is 2,000 kilometers away from our small county town, a day and night by train. In this life, no one is going to stop me. Too. There are still 2 months until the semester starts. In these 2 months, I have to play the part of obedient Ting Ting well. The next morning, my sister-in-law brought Debeo to the door of my room. "Ting Ting, I'm heading to work. You watch Debeo for a bit." I smiled and said okay, then took the child. Debeo was 2 years old, right at the most clingy age, reaching out his arms for me to hold him. I put him down on the crawling mat. If he cries, let him cry. No soothing, no holding, no playing along. Aside from feeding and changing diapers, I wouldn't do anything extra. In the afternoon, my mom called back. "Ting Ting, the store's shipment has arrived. Come help carry it in." I looked at the sleeping Debeo and Erbao, then headed to the family's small shop. My dad, Su Jiangwo, was playing cards with the old man from the shop next door at the entrance. My brother Sule was sitting behind the cash register playing games. My mom was alone, moving boxes of drinks off the tricycle, so worn out she couldn't even straighten her back. In my past life, I would have rushed over to help her carry them. In this life, I walked over and ordered my brother, "Bro, you go move them. My arms are sore." He didn't even look up. "I'm busy, you do it." I laughed, playing games counts as busy. My mom quickly stepped in to smooth things over. All right, Ting Ting, you move them. Your brother knows what he's doing. He doesn't know jack shit. He's over 30, yet his ability to take care of himself is worse than an adult monkey's. I still moved it, but I did it deliberately slowly. My mom urged me, "Ting Ting, hurry up, they're waiting." I said, "Mom, my back hurts. I'm still young. If I ruin my back, how will I find a job later?" My mom paused for a moment and didn't respond. My dad and brother didn't even look up, as if the two of us were invisible. At dinner, my sister-in-law suddenly spoke up. "Honey, Debeo needs to start early education classes. It's 3,000 a semester." My brother paused as he was picking up food with his chopsticks. "No money." My sister-in-law looked at me. "Ting Ting, don't you have some New Year's money saved up? Why not lend us some first?" My mother chimed in as well. "That's right, it's only right for you as his aunt to spend a little on your nephew. Debeo will support you in your old age. After all." I put down my chopsticks and smiled. "Sure, sister-in-law, you write me an IOU, and I'll remember it." My sister-in-law's face darkened. "We're family. Do we really need an IOU? Even brothers keep clear accounts. Weren't you the one asking to borrow from me?" "Sis-in-law, when you borrow, you write an IOU, fair and square." My mother tried to mediate. All right, forget it. No loan." Then, that evening, my mother came to my room, took my hand, and tried to persuade me. "Ting Ting, I know you've been wronged, but your brother has a hard time supporting his family, and your sister-in-law has to work too. Please help out." My mother's hands were covered in calluses, built up over the years. "Mom, it hasn't been easy for you either. All these years, you've run the household on your own. Dad and my brother never helped." My mother was stunned, her eyes reddening, but she immediately added, "Don't talk about your father and brother like that. They have it hard too. That's how my mother is, always defending the men in the family, even if they only see her as a convenient servant. She's been used up by this family, and now she wants to push me into the same fire pit. In my past life, I always sold myself short because I felt sorry for her. In this life, I've woken up. You can never wake someone who's only pretending to be asleep." 3. The day the acceptance letter arrived, the whole family was there. My hands were trembling as I picked up the package. It was the admission letter from Haicheng University. I tucked the letter into my clothes and went home. My mom asked, "Which school?" My heart was racing, but my face remained calm. "Just the teacher's college in the city." "You watched me fill out the application, didn't you?" She didn't think much of it and turned back to trimming vegetables. My brother mocked me while gaming. "What's so special about an admission letter? It's just a piece of paper." During dinner, my dad rarely spoke up. "Ting Ting, which university are you going to?" My heart tightened. "The city's normal school." My dad nodded. "It's good to be close. You can come back on weekends and help your mom with the chores." My mom said, "Your dad is right. The family can't do without you." My brother said, "Exactly. Who'll take care of the kids if you leave?" My sister-in-law chimed in. "Ting Ting is studying education. Isn't being a teacher about looking after children? You can practice on Debeo and Erbao. Their studies will depend on you from now on. That saves a ton of money." I laughed. "Sister-in-law, why are you so eager to push her and my brother's child onto me?" My brother slammed down his chopsticks. "Su Ting, what do you mean by that? Aren't you part of this family?" My sister-in-law's expression also darkened. "Ting Ting, the way you say that makes it sound like we've been unfair to you. You eat and live at home for free, don't you? The family will also have to pay for your college, right? Isn't it only right that you help out with some chores around the house?" "Sister-in-law, I applied for a student loan for college. It doesn't cost the family anything." My dad spoke up. "Ting Ting, why are you saying this? A family shouldn't draw such clear lines. What kind of talk is that? Your brother is a man. He has a family to support. You're a girl. Once you marry out, you'll belong to someone else's family. It's only right that you help out at home now." My dad has never washed a single piece of clothing, cooked a single meal, or moved a single box of goods in his life. Does he even have the right to say anything? "Dad, you're right. My brother has a family to support, so he should work even harder. After all, he's the head of the household." My mom stepped in as the peacemaker. "Ting Ting, your father means well. A girl shouldn't be too headstrong, or she'll never find a husband." I looked at my mother. Why would I want to get married? To serve the whole family until my back breaks, and not even hear a kind word in return? My mother's face turned pale. "What nonsense are you talking? That's called the joy of family life. I gave a cold laugh. Joy, Mom, you've suffered your whole life. Have they ever given you any happiness? My dad slammed his chopsticks down. Su Ting, have you lost your mind? Your mother worked hard to raise you, and this is how you talk to her? I stood up. Did I say something wrong? Mom opens the shop before dawn every day and doesn't close until midnight, moving stock, running the register, making deliveries. She does it all alone. And you sit at the door cracking sunflower seeds and playing cards. And my brother, he plays games in the shop. Which of you has ever helped her? My father's face flushed red with anger, and he slapped me. I didn't have time to dodge, and my ears started ringing. My mother rushed over and grabbed my father. Why are you hitting the child? My brother sat nearby, watching the drama unfold. Good hit. If you don't hit him, he won't learn. My mother grew anxious. Ting Ting, apologize to your father right now. Tell him you won't dare do it again. I stood there without moving. What wrong do I admit to? What did I say wrong? My father pointed at me. Su Ting, you listen well. In this family, you don't get a say yet. Your brother is the son. This family will be his in the future. You are the daughter. And you'll marry out sooner or later. It's only right that you help support the family now. When you marry, you won't be needed by your in-laws anyway. Your mother and I put you through school, not so you could come back and lecture us. My sister-in-law sighed on the side. Life is impossible like this. Ting Ting is so inconsiderate. What if she leads Tabeo and Erbao astray in the future? Looking at the 4 people before me, each with a different expression, a flicker of resentment arose in my heart. I will never come back to this home again. Fine, I won't say anything more. I turned and went back to my room, locking the door behind me. I began to gather the things I would take with me. There was over 2,000 yuan in my bank card, money from New Year's red envelopes plus what I'd saved from secretly tutoring over the summer. That would be enough to get me through the start of the school term. Over the next few days, I did what I always did. Looked after the kids when I was supposed to, moved boxes when I was supposed to, no backtalk. No rebuttals, no words. They thought I had finally become completely docile. My sister-in-law even said to my mom, see, a good slap made her behave. Ting Ting just needed some discipline. My mom said, this child is stubborn in speech, but deep down she knows what's right. I said nothing. On August 30th, before dawn, I dragged my suitcase out from under the bed and boarded the train to Haicheng. The next afternoon, my mom was stocking shelves, my dad was playing cards, and my brother was playing video games. A middle-aged neighbor came in to buy cigarettes. Oh, you're Ting Ting isn't here today. My mom smiled. Ting Ting has gone to the city for university. She'll be back on weekends. The neighbor scanned the code to pay, as if something had just come to mind. Your Ting Ting has really made something of herself. The other day I passed by the county's one high school and saw her photo on the honor roll. First place, she got into Haicheng University. For the broom in my mom's hand fell to the floor. What did you say? Haicheng University. That's right, Haicheng University. It's a Project 985 school. Only 3 students from our county got in this year, and your Ting Ting ranked first. My mother stood there frozen, unable to move for a long time. My father's ears finally caught on. He stopped playing cards and turned around. Old Lee, what did you just say? Which school did she get into? The uncle looked astonished. Haicheng University. Haicheng is a big city. You didn't know. My father stood up, his face flushing red. Didn't she apply to the city Teachers College? The uncle had already walked far away. No one answered him. My brother stood up from behind the counter, phone still in hand. The game's defeat sound effect playing. She changed her application. My brother's voice rose. When did she change it? My sister-in-law came out from the inner room holding the second child, her face also grim. Didn't she say she was applying to the city Teachers College? Did that girl lie to us? My mother picked up the broom, her hands trembling. She said yesterday she was going to the city to register, and I gave her 200 yuan for travel expenses. My brother took out his phone and dialed my number. It was off. He dialed again, still powered off. It's off, my brother said, slamming the phone on the counter. She must have run away. My sister-in-law panicked. She ran away. Then who's watching the kids? I have work tomorrow. My mom looked at my brother. Why don't you call one of her classmates? How would I have their numbers? My dad stood by the doorway, still clutching his playing cards, his knuckles turning white. She dares to run, a young girl like her, going that far. I doubt she'll last more than a few days. My sister-in-law muttered beside him. Exactly, she thinks life out there is so easy. She'll come slinking back soon enough. My mom didn't say anything. She kept sweeping the floor with the broom, then stopped after a few strokes and stood there in a daze. In the following days, they took turns calling my phone. Powered off, still powered off. My brother sent a long string of voice messages in the family group chat. I didn't listen to a single one. My mom sent me over a dozen messages. From Ting Ting, where are you? To come back quick. Something happened at home. To where are you abandoning your mom? I didn't reply to any of them. I was busy with military training. 3 days later, my brother went to the police station. The police asked him what was wrong, and he said his Sister was missing, had changed her college application without permission, and gone to another city, and the family couldn't reach her. The police checked and said, Su Ting, 18 years old, an adult, changing her application is her own right, she is not missing, her ID has a ticket purchase record showing she went to Haicheng. My brother got anxious, she lied to the family, she told us she applied to the local teacher's college. The officer glanced at him. What exactly did she lie about? The application was filled out by her, your family can advise, but you cannot force her, this is her freedom. My brother made a scene at the police station for a long time, and the officer finally said, if you are worried about her safety, you can go to Haicheng yourselves to find her, but we cannot bring her back, she is an adult with the right to make her own decisions. When my brother went back and told our parents, my mom cried. What if something happens to her, running off that far all alone? My dad sat on the sofa, cracking sunflower seeds. What could happen to her? It'd be a relief if she died. At least she wouldn't bring shame on the family. My mom glared at him. What kind of talk is that? My sister-in-law sighed beside them. Now that she's run off, what about Debeo and Erbao? I have to go to work tomorrow. Who will look after the kids? 5. They still came after her to Haicheng. When the police station wouldn't help, they found their own way. My brother looked up the address of Haicheng University online, bought 2 train tickets, and came along with my mom. My mom had never left the county seat in her entire life, and had only been to the city 2 or 3 times on the train. She was so nervous that she kept clutching the strap of her bag, her face turning pale. When they arrived in Haicheng, she almost got lost while exiting the station. My brother cussed at her while trying to find the way. They wandered around the train station for over an hour before finally finding the bus that went to the university. At the university gate, my mom stared at the entrance, stunned. It's so big. The school security guard stopped them and asked who they were looking for. My mother said, I'm looking for my daughter, Su Ting. The security guard checked and said the new students were doing military training and couldn't just be visited. My mother burst into tears on the spot. I came all the way from my hometown, traveling a day and a night by train. Just let me go in and see her for a moment. The security guard, at a loss, contacted the class advisor. I was doing military training on the field when the advisor came to find me and said someone was looking for me. I asked who it was. The advisor said, your mother, and someone who says he's your brother. I said, I don't want to see them. The advisor was stunned for a moment. Are you sure? I'm sure. The advisor relayed the message. And my mother cried at the school gate for half an hour. My brother shouted outside the gate, Su Ting, you ungrateful wretch, Mom came all the way to see you, and you won't even meet her. My mother waited outside the school gate for 3 days. On the first day, she stood at the gate from morning until evening. On the second day, she brought a small stool and sat at the gate from morning until evening. On the third day, she didn't come. The counselor later told me that my mother got heatstroke the next afternoon. She was sitting at the gate and almost fainted. But a security guard gave her a glass of water and helped her to a shady spot to rest. My brother scolded her the whole way. It's all your fault for spoiling her. Now she's grown wings and won't even acknowledge you, and you still want to see her. Do you think she'll meet you? My mother didn't say a word. They stayed in Haicheng for 4 days and never even got to see me. The counselor told me all this while I was tidying up my dorm room. The counselor said, your mother looks pretty pitiful. Are you really not going to see her? I said, no. In my past life, I raised 3 kids alone and worked a job, and by my 20s my hair had already turned white. Before I even turned 30, I died of cancer. Who is as pitiful as me? The counselor sighed and didn't try to persuade me further. After my mom and brother went back, the house became even more chaotic. My mom had to take care of 2 children on her own while also running the small shop. She was completely overwhelmed. The older one cried. The younger one fussed, and my mom couldn't even grab a bite to eat. My dad still sat at the door every day, snacking on sunflower seeds and playing cards, offering no help. My brother still spent all day playing games, offering no help, because there was no one to look after the children. My sister-in-law asked her boss for half a month off. The boss said she couldn't take that long and told her to either come back sooner or not come back at all. My sister-in-law flew into a rage and quit her job after coming home. She cursed my brother out every day. Weren't you the one who said your sister would come back? Where is she? You're a grown man, but you can't even support this family. Why did I marry you? My brother got frustrated by all the scolding and started arguing back. They fought from morning till night. Debeo was crying on one side, Erbao was crying on the other, and my mother tried to mediate but couldn't stop either of them. One evening, my sister-in-law smashed a bowl. Sule, listen to me. If you don't find your sister and bring her back, then don't bother carrying on this marriage anymore. My brother also exploded. How the hell am I supposed to find her? She won't see me. That's your problem. Anyway, I can't take care of the kid anymore. My dad, cracking sunflower seeds on the side, said, what's all the yelling about? Not a single one in this family is worry-free. My sister-in-law glared at my dad. You've got some nerve talking. You sit at the door playing cards all day. Have you ever once helped with the shop? Have you ever taken care of The kid, my dad was speechless. A sunflower seed shell got stuck in his throat, and he coughed for a long time. My mom sat in the corner, her back aching so badly she couldn't straighten up, tears falling down her face. No one looked at her. A month into the semester, my brother called me again. This time it went through. I hadn't blocked him. I just set my phone to silent and kept not answering. That day I was reading in the library when my phone buzzed. I picked it up and saw it was my brother's number. I hesitated, then stepped outside the library to answer. Su Ting, you finally picked up. His voice was loud, and I could hear my mom crying in the background. What is it? When will you be back? Mom is sick. Her back hurts so much she can't get out of bed, and there's no one to take care of Dababeo and Erbeobeo. If mom is sick, take her to the doctor. You and your wife look after the children yourselves. I'm a grown man. How would I know how to take care of kids? I knew how when I was 18. You're over 30 and still don't. My brother was speechless for a few seconds. Then he said, are you even human? Mom raised you, and now you won't take care of her. I remember that mom raised me, but she's not just my mom. She's yours too. She raised me for 18 years, and she raised you for over 30. Have you ever taken care of her? From the other end of the line came mom's voice. Ting Ting, please come back. I'm begging you. I held my phone, my fingers trembling. Mom, you've had back pain for years, moved so many boxes of goods. Who among them ever helped you? When I help, you say I'm supposed to. Now you want me to come back. To do what? Keep moving boxes for you. Keep looking after the kids for you. Mom, I can't save you. If you won't stand up yourself, no one can save you. My mom cried on the other end of the phone. I cried too, but I didn't give in. Mom, I'm hanging up. Take care of yourself. During the winter break of my freshman year, I didn't go home. My roommate asked where I would be for the new year, and I said at school. She asked, aren't you going home for the spring festival? I said no. On New Year's Eve, I was alone in my dorm, cooking a bowl of instant noodles. My phone buzzed all day. My mom called over a dozen times, but I didn't pick up a single one. My brother sent a voice message. I didn't open it. At midnight, as the new year arrived, someone set off fireworks outside the window. I stood by the window for a while, and the instant noodles had already gone cold. I sent my advisor a message. Happy New Year. My advisor replied, Happy New Year. Take care of yourself out there alone. I said, okay. I put down my phone, lay on the bed, and closed my eyes. A lot of things flashed through my mind. The way my mom bent over moving goods at the store entrance, her back arched like a bow. The way my dad cracked sunflower seeds and played cards. The floor covered with shells. My brother looks like any intense gamer, holding his phone sideways and tapping away with lightning speed. My sister-in-law is sprawled on the sofa scrolling through her phone. The child is crying on the floor, but she doesn't even lift her head. And there's the previous life. My mother stood by the bed and said, if you're gone, who will take care of your brother's children? My sister-in-law chimed in with a sigh. Our eldest hasn't even started middle school yet. Who will help them with their homework from now on? Can't you just hold on until they finish their college entrance exams? On the day I died, the whole family was busy celebrating the fourth child's 1-month birthday feast. No one noticed when I took my last breath. I opened my eyes. The fireworks are still going off outside the window. I turned over and pulled the blanket over my head. 4 years later, I graduated from college and passed the selection exam to teach at a key secondary school in Haicheng. Becoming a teacher there, that same year, I bought an apartment in Haicheng. It wasn't big, just 60 square meters, enough for me alone. The down payment came from money I had saved over 4 years, scholarship earnings, tutoring, part-time jobs, internship pay. I saved every bit of it. The day I got the property deed, I stood in the house for a long time. The windows faced south, sunlight streamed in, making the floor bright and shiny. I sent my advisor a message. I bought a house. My advisor replied, congratulations, you've really been through so much. I said, thank you, teacher. I put down my phone and started packing. Moving from the rental to the new home, I didn't have many things. 2 suitcases were enough. One of those suitcases was the same one I had brought from my hometown 4 years ago. The zipper broke, so I stitched it up with a needle and thread. It still works. I opened my suitcase, and at the very bottom lay a piece of paper, the admission letter from Haicheng University. The paper had yellowed a bit, and the edges were crumpled. But this was the turning point of my life, and I couldn't bear to throw it away. I heard the news from home through the neighbor's kid. That kid also got into Haicheng University, and his mother asked him to pass along a message to me. My sister-in-law divorced my brother. The reason is that after years of arguing, they really couldn't carry on living together. My sister-in-law left with her 3rd child, leaving the 1st and 2nd child with my brother. My brother simply cannot manage raising 2 kids on his own. The oldest child's grades are a mess. In 2nd grade, he still can't recognize all the pinyin. The 2nd child is in kindergarten but is late every day and leaves early all the time. When the teacher wanted to talk to a parent, my brother went and ended up arguing with the teacher. The small store went out of business too. My mother held on a loan for 3 years, but in the end, she just couldn't anymore. Her lower back hurt so much she couldn't stand up. She ordered less and less stock. Fewer and fewer customers came, and finally she had to close the shop. My father still plays cards every day. Nothing has changed. My mother's back pain got worse. Later she went to the hospital for a checkup and was told she had a lumbar disc herniation that required surgery. The surgery cost $30,000. My brother couldn't come up with the money. My father said, "Ask your sister for it. She's out there making big money." The neighbor's child said my mother wanted to reach out to me but felt too embarrassed to ask. I didn't say anything in the end. I still sent 30,000 yuan back home. It's not that I'm soft-hearted, it's that I don't want to owe them anything. After transferring the money, I sent my mom a message. "I've paid for the surgery. Don't look for me again." My mom replied, "Ting Ting, please come back and see me. I miss you." I didn't respond. She sent another message. "Your father had a stroke. Half of his body is paralyzed." I didn't respond. "Your brother dumped a bow and air bow on me. I'm raising 2 kids alone and taking care of your father. I can barely hold on." I put my phone in my pocket and didn't look at it again. When I got home that night, I sat on the sofa and zoned out for a long time. It's not that I don't feel for her, it's that I've felt for her so many times. I've gone numb. My mom has been run dry by this family her whole life, and willingly so. She even wants to drag me into it. Her hardships were never my doing. Yet she always points the finger at me. I can't save her. The only one I can save is myself. At the age of 28, I became a core teacher at my school. That same year, I earned the intermediate professional title. My colleagues said I was lucky, that everything went smoothly for me. I said yes, I was lucky. No one knew what my life was like before I turned 18, nor did anyone know how I died in my previous life. That autumn, I returned to the county town, not to see them. It was about handling the teacher qualification certificate. After finishing that, I passed by the small shop on the door of the shop was a yellowed for transfer notice that had been posted for a long time with no one asking about it. No one was playing cards at the entrance anymore. I turned around and left. When I reached the mouth of the alley, a voice came from behind. "Ting Ting." It was my mom. I did not look back. "Ting Ting, is that you?" I kept walking forward. "Ting Ting, wait. Mom has something to say." My footsteps did not stop. Mom was wrong. I was really wrong. "Please come back and look at Mom." I reached the end of the alley and turned the corner. Her voice was blocked by the wall. I stood outside the alley. The wind blew against my face, cool against my skin. When I touched my face, it was covered in tears. I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and walked toward the train station. My phone buzzed. I picked it up and saw a message from my mom. "Ting Ting, the biggest regret of my life is not having stood by your side back then. If there is a next life, I will definitely support you." I stood by the roadside and looked at this message for a long time. As the train began to move, I watched the small county town outside the window recede little by little. It receded quickly, just like when I was 18. What was different was that this time, I would never come back. The end. Story 2. On Lantern Festival, I cut off the hair that got singed when my youngest uncle set off firecrackers. Grandma turned pale with shock and immediately slapped me twice across the face. "Who told you to cut your hair? Don't you know trimming hair in the first lunar month brings death to your uncles?" My uncle is Grandma's late-life child. We're both 12 this year, with his birthday just 5 days before mine. The news of his impending death terrified him so much that he developed a high fever. 3 days later, my youngest uncle actually passed away. Grandma claimed my hair-cutting ritual was what killed him in her rage to avenge my uncle's death. My mother beat me to death, given a second chance at life. I hid all the firecrackers at home, with nothing better to do. My uncle took the chewing gum from his mouth and stuck it on my head. Seeing I didn't cry or fuss, he got bored and chased me with scissors. Then came the snip sound, just as Grandma looked at him with doting eyes, cut off my bubblegum-stuck hair with her own hands. Clang! Grandma flung the metal fish basin right in front of me, spitting melon seed shells into the snow. She motioned for me to clean the fish, staring at the lively carp leaping before me. I froze for seconds before realizing I'd been reborn. On this very day in my past life, my restless uncle tossed a double-bang firecracker onto my head. The explosion tore open my scalp. Blood streamed down my face as my hair caught fire. There I was weeping, while that uncle of mine just left. The people inside weren't deaf. They'd simply grown numb to it. They'd rather hold their bladders in gossip than bother stepping out for a look. In desperation, I grabbed scissors and severed my burning braid. Grandma blamed me for my uncle's subsequent death. To avenge him, Mother beat me until my breath gave out. At this thought, I dashed to the storeroom, retrieved the remaining firecrackers, and buried them in the snowdrift behind the woodshed. Just as I turned around, Mom came back from visiting neighbors with Uncle Junior in tow. Mom was carrying a bag of fruits and some glutinous rice balls, while Uncle Junior munched on a piece of egg sausage as they walked. One eye greeted each of them, but they walked right past me without so much as a glance. In this household, it feels like everyone can't stand me. I was born when Mom was 18, the result of her affair with a married man from the city. His wife was formidable, so my biological father never acknowledged me and eventually moved away. When Mom couldn't track him down, Grandma happened to give birth to my youngest uncle. Mom dumped me on her, saying one mouth to feed or two. What's the difference? So I became mom's shame and grandma's burden. I was gutting fish when my little uncle, having failed to find firecrackers in the shed, came barreling toward me. He kicked over the water basin with 1 foot, bloody water and fish guts splashed all over me as he doubled over laughing. Grandma came running out with a scarf for him, clutching a bunch of bananas in her hand. She broke off a piece for herself and my uncle, then noticed me staring longingly and asked, "What are you gawking at? Want some too?" Grandma impatiently tore off a nearly spoiled piece and tossed it at me, her entire face dripping with disdain. "Knew you'd beg for food, always stuffing your face, never seen such a glutton in my life. No wonder your own father abandoned you. Anyone cursed with raising you deserves 8 generations of bad luck." My uncle dug out a huge wad of chewed bubblegum from his mouth and smeared it all over my face and hair. "You want snacks? Here, have it all, eat up, go on, eat." Grandma watched with doting amusement, chuckling as she went inside. I desperately tried peeling the gum from my hair, but sticky strands clung stubbornly. My uncle picked up the scissors by the wash basin with a mischievous grin. "You little bastard, this stuff won't come off your hair. Want me to cut it out for you?" I stared at him in terror before turning tail and bolting. In the main room, Grandma's voice shot up an octave when she saw my uncle chasing after me. "Liana, why are you running? Can't you humor your uncle? Just go along with whatever he wants. If he falls and gets hurt, I'll skin you alive." I froze in terror, not daring to move a muscle. My uncle grabbed me and swiftly brought the scissors down with a sharp snip. My hair was cut. "Hugo, don't cut it," Grandma screamed, finally realizing why I was running, but it was too late. My hair was already severed. Grandma snatched the scissors from Uncle's hand, flung them to the ground, and angrily smacked his chubby knuckles. "Hugo, don't you know cutting hair during New Year month kills uncles? How dare you chop this brat's hair off? You've got a death wish." The back of my uncle's hand turned red from the smack, and he burst into loud sobs. Grandma's heart ached as she pulled his hand to blow on it, then wheeled around and slapped me across the face. "Are you stupid? Just letting your uncle cut your hair like that?" Covering my face, I dared not cry aloud, only whimpering softly, "Grandma." I tried to run, but you wouldn't let me. Grandma was momentarily speechless. She pointed at me angrily, her cheeks puffed with frustration, yet couldn't think of any proper accusation to pin on me. Mom stormed over, yanking the bubblegum from my hair while scolding me. "You're nothing but bad luck. I never should have given birth to you. Your uncle's the only male heir in this family. If anything happens to him, how dare you show your face around here? Don't expect me to take you with me. You can rot for all I care." The youngest uncle looked utterly terrified. His face flushed crimson as he tugged at Grandma's sleeve. "Mom, is it true? Am I really gonna die?" Grandma's face fell seeing how frightened he was. She shoved 2 fried meatballs into his hands and pulled him close, patting his back. "Hush now, sweetheart. Mommy was just teasing you." But Uncle refused to believe it. Grandma had never laid a finger on him since the day he was born, yet today she whipped him because my hair got cut. His spirit instantly deflated. Just then, Auntie peeked out from the inner room and saw my disheveled hair, asking a question. "Liana, what did you do to upset your uncle again? You never learn. Serves you right getting beaten." Mom was practically tearing my hair out. This brat got gum stuck in her hair, so Hugo had to cut it off. Auntie's eyes widened in horror as she shuffled over in her slippers. "Good heavens, child, cutting hair in the first lunar month brings death to uncles. I'm already nervous just combing my kid's hair this month. And you went and chopped it off." Grandma was so furious she slapped me again and I nodded. This time, all the aunts and relatives chatting inside came out to watch the drama. Uncle got even more terrified, wailing his heart out. I whispered in reply, "It was Uncle who cut it. He stuck bubblegum in my hair and couldn't get it out, so he decided to cut my hair." I tried to run away, but Grandma stopped me, and then Uncle caught me and chopped it off. I need everyone to know I wasn't the one who jinxed us by cutting hair during Lunar New Year. They exchanged awkward glances. Completely speechless now, Auntie noticed little Uncle's flushed cheeks and instinctively reached to feel his forehead. "Wait a minute, does Hugo actually have a fever?" Mid-sentence, Uncle's eyes rolled back as he collapsed against Grandma's legs. Meatballs scattered across the floor while Grandma panicked, urging Mom to carry Uncle to bed. "This is either fright sickness or demon possession. Go fetch Zelda to examine your brother." Zelda was our village's elderly widow, childless in her 60s. Known for performing shamanic rituals, my mother dragged me along to seek help. Zelda lit a cigarette after hearing the whole story. "Cutting hair in the first lunar month kills uncles. This child's lost their soul. No clinic can fix this. Let me come home with you to sort it out. They'll be right as rain within 3 days." As she spoke, she absent-mindedly smoothed my unevenly chopped hair. I shuddered in fear, remembering how in my past life when my uncle had a fever, Zelda came to perform her shamanic rituals. Seeing my scalp split open by firecrackers, she insisted no hospital was needed, just sprinkling incense ashes on the wound. Tragically, by the time my mother beat me to death, my scalp still hadn't healed. Not only did it fail to close, but it had started oozing pus. I trailed slowly behind Mom and Zelda, dragging my feet. I was thinking, Zelda was the one who got my uncle killed in my past life. Seems history's repeating itself this time around, at least this time my uncle himself. Cut my hair, no way in hell could they pin his death on me. Suddenly Zelda doesn't seem so bad after all. She came through for me when I needed help. I owe her ancestors my eternal gratitude. When I got back, only grandma and youngest uncle remained at home, seeing the family in such disarray during New Year's. All the relatives, including eldest aunt, left without even eating, afraid of catching bad luck. Grandma shooed me into the kitchen to cook, then after arranging offerings and lighting incense, Zelda started performing the shamanic ritual. After bustling about, Grandma insisted Zelda stay for dinner. She laid out all the finest dishes our household could offer, too. Grandma never allowed me at the dining table, crouched by the stove with just steamed buns and pickles. I watched helplessly as Zelda devoured the sweet and sour fish, fried dough twists, and pork aspic. She didn't put down her chopsticks until she'd eaten her fill and burped, telling my grandma not to worry. This boy Hugo is blessed. Surviving this calamity means he'll rise to high office someday. Overjoyed, Grandma slipped her another 200 yuan after Zelda left. Though Uncle's fever subsided somewhat, he remained disoriented. In the dead of night, Grandma was too exhausted to stay awake, so she asked Mom and me to keep an eye on Uncle while she went to the inner room to sleep. Mom squinted at me for a moment before suddenly sitting upright. Liana, I need to talk to you about something. I nodded, though I already knew what she was going to say. Liana, in a few days I'm bringing a male friend over. When you meet him, you can't call me Mom anymore. You'll call me Sis. Tell him you and your uncle are twins, both born to your grandma. Got it. Mom pretended to affectionately pat my head, but her palm held no warmth. In my past life, I couldn't understand why I had to call her Sis and kept questioning it. It annoyed Mom so much she kicked me hard. Stop with the damn questions. Call me what I tell you to. Remember this. If you slip up, I'll cut your tongue out. In the end, she didn't even give me a chance to cut my tongue before that man could arrive. My uncle died, and right after that, my mother beat me to death. Back then, she said she wanted me to pay for my uncle's life with mine. Looking back now, she probably had wanted to get rid of this deadweight long ago, just hadn't found the right excuse or opportunity this time. I nodded straight away and said yes. My mom paused for a second, then pulled out 5 yuan and handed it to me. What? A good girl, Liana. In all my 12 years of life, this was the first time Mom had ever called me a good girl, and the first time she'd given me pocket money. She only rewarded me because I wasn't allowed to call her Mom. I carefully folded the money and tucked it into my pocket, patting it repeatedly before timidly asking, would Grandma even be okay with me calling her Mom? My mother curled her lip. Relax. With your grandfather gone, who else would she listen to besides me? You think she's actually counting on that baby boy of hers for retirement? By the time he grows up, she'll be halfway underground, if she even lives that long. I thought to myself that Grandma really couldn't count on Uncle anymore, because Uncle was about to die. The next morning, little Uncle was still running a fever. Grandma held Uncle in her arms and wept. Hugo, you better stay in one piece. Your mother's counting on you for her old age. My mom got woken up and was thoroughly annoyed, though she couldn't very well argue with Grandma. She kicked me through the quilt, then immediately tucked her freezing foot back under the covers. Get moving and light the stove already. This place is turning into an icebox. You trying to freeze your uncle to death. Fearing a beating, I quickly threw on my clothes and dashed out to gather firewood. After stoking the fire to steam the buns, I started frying dumplings for my uncle. The dumplings turned golden and crispy, making my mouth water uncontrollably. Grandma never fed me well, claiming girls should be raised poor, that pickled vegetables ward off misfortune, even stir-fried greens with a hint of oil were rationed. I'd only get scraps from the plate's edge. I was inhaling the aroma deeply when Grandma came out wrapped in her shawl, gulped some water, and flung the remaining half-cup right in my face. Your uncle's still sick, and here you are sniffing around like a damn dog. Keep your hands off your uncle's dumplings. Didn't you claim steamed buns taste like cake? Go chew your damn buns somewhere else. So she still remembered that incident. My birthday is just 5 days apart from Uncle's, yet everyone only remembers on his birthday last year. Mom had someone bring back a cream cake from town. The cake had candles on it, decorated with pink flowers and green leaves. Little Uncle wore a hat, blew out the candles while making a wish, and nearly finished the whole cake by himself. When there were just a few bites left, my uncle couldn't finish it and said to me, look how greedy you are. Crawl around on your knees a few times, and I'll let you have it. Grandma snatched the plate away and told my uncle, Liana doesn't even like cake. It'd be wasted on her. With that, she polished off the remaining cake, scraping the plate clean. I nibbled on my plain steamed bun, fighting back tears. My fragile pride made me shake my head. I don't like cake. I prefer steamed buns. They're just as good as cake. Later, when I went to throw away the cake box. I spotted some leftover frosting and secretly licked it off, so cake wasn't just pretty, it was this deliciously sweet and fragrant too. Grandma caught me red-handed. She dragged me inside by my hair and gleefully described my frosting-licking shame to Uncle. That day, the news spread like wildfire through the entire village. Everyone said old Lynn's granddaughter wasn't just illegitimate, but downright wretched. A starving ghost reborn, though mocked and scorned all day. I still secretly pocketed my uncle's leftover birthday candles. 5 days later on my birthday, I stuck them into a steamed bun and wished I could someday have a whole cream cake to myself. Sadly, I died before that wish could come true. If I get another chance at life, I'm definitely having that cake. Gotta have it every single birthday. After breakfast, Zelda started her weird ritual dance again. She'd been coming over for 2 straight days, turning the house upside down, but little uncle showed no signs of improvement. On the 3rd evening, Mom said this couldn't go on, maybe we should take him to the town hospital. Grandma stood her ground. Who goes to the hospital during New Year's? That's asking for a year of sickness. Hugo's just spooked. Let's try giving him some cinnabar later. With that, Grandma rummaged through drawers and pulled out crimson powder from a red cloth bundle, forcing it down little uncle's throat. Sure enough, my uncle's fever broke within an hour. Not only was his fever gone, but he regained full consciousness, alternating between demands for water and food. After some porridge restored his strength, he glared at me and growled that he'd finish me off once he recovered. My heart pounded wildly, knees trembling with fear. I don't understand why my uncle suddenly recovered from his illness in this lifetime. Is it because he didn't blow my brains out that he gets to live too? What should I do? If he survives this time, I'll probably be dead soon myself. Late at night, Grandma stayed with Uncle while Mom and I slept in the inner room. Exhausted from all the commotion or finally able to relax, both my mother and grandmother had fallen into a deep sleep. In the middle of the night, I got up to use the bathroom and noticed Grandma still hadn't stirred, so I quietly grabbed a pair of scissors from the kitchen, tiptoeing to my uncle's bedside. I gave him a gentle nudge. My uncle woke up, blinking groggily at me. I flashed him a smile and raised the scissors within his line of sight. The scissors gleamed coldly under the moonlight. I snipped off a lock of my bangs. When Uncle saw I'd cut my hair again, he stared at me in horror like someone had grabbed him by the throat. His whole body trembled violently, yet not a sound escaped his lips. My palms were drenched in sweat, but I steeled myself and grabbed another lock of hair. Before I could make the cut, Uncle's eyes rolled back as he passed out. Simultaneously, a pungent stench filled the air. He wet himself. Trembling like a leaf, I staggered out of bed, tossed the hair clutched in my hand deep into the earthen stove, and carefully put the scissors back in place. I lay wide-eyed until dawn. Grandma woke at cockcrow. She switched on the light and reached for Uncle's forehead, then let out a blood-curdling scream. Mother and I scrambled out of bed simultaneously. Uncle's face had turned ashen, his nails and lips deathly pale. He was gone. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I licked my lips, my voice trembling. Grandma, how could Uncle have died? Didn't Zelda say the 3-day ritual would definitely cure him? Grandma sprang up like a madwoman. I'm going to find her. She'll pay for my son's life. 3. Without even putting on her winter coat, Grandma stormed out to confront Zelda. As usual, I got up and put on my padded coat to fetch firewood, but Mom suddenly hugged me. Liana, wait for me. I'm scared. I froze. This was the first time Mom had ever embraced me. Her hands trembled badly, and it took her forever to get dressed. When we opened the door, Grandma's angry shouts echoed from the village path, dragging Zelda by the collar and hair all the way home. She drew a crowd of curious villagers who came out to watch the commotion. Within minutes, their house was packed with onlookers. The grandmother called Zelda a fraud. You promised 3 days of dancing would cure him, and now my son's condition has worsened. Had you not given us your word, we'd have taken Hugo to the hospital long ago. Zelda's face was bruised as she stubbornly defended herself. I said 3 days means 3 days. If it's not fixed, something's wrong with your damn house. Don't you dare blame me. The two women became entangled in a scuffle that even neighbors couldn't pull apart. Only when Grandma collapsed exhausted onto the floor did Zelda finally break free. The village chief came to mediate, saying that regardless of the circumstances, the child was gone and we should focus on preparing the funeral arrangements first. My young uncle was only 12, so there was no need for a formal funeral. Just dressing him in clean clothes before burial would suffice. Grandma was utterly heartbroken, weeping uncontrollably. I walked over and took her hand. Don't cry, Grandma. Mom said I should be your daughter from now on, to call you Mother. I'll listen. I'll call you Mother from today. Please don't cry. I wasn't finished talking. Grandma's sobbing stopped abruptly. She stared blankly at me, then at my mother. Suddenly she sprang up and slapped my mother across the face. Susan, it just came back to me. It's you. No wonder Hugo's fever wouldn't break after 3 days of rituals. This is all because you forced Liana to call me Mom. Your daughter's stealing my son's life force. Grandma hit with terrifying strength. Mom's nose and mouth were gushing blood. The neighbor who intervened looked utterly baffled, unable to comprehend why I'd addressed my grandmother as Mom. Grandma dropped all pretense of civility. She completely abandoned Discretion about airing dirty laundry in public, pointing at my mother while ranting to others. What sin did I commit to raise such a shameless daughter? She dumped Liana on me after giving birth, then hooked up with some new man, afraid he'd discover she had a child. She convinced me to pretend Liana and Hugo were twins, both calling me mother. Like a fool I agreed. How could I forget twin births compete for life force? By letting Liana call me mom, I doomed my own son. Cursed, I tell you. First this child killed my husband, now my boy. How am I supposed to go on living? That year, right after Grandma gave birth to my youngest uncle, Mom suddenly returned to the village heavily pregnant. 5 days later, my mother gave birth to me. She dumped me with Grandma without even taking postnatal rest, then went off to enjoy herself. A month later, my grandfather suddenly died of a cerebral hemorrhage. In her grief, Grandma told everyone that grandfather's death was my fault, claiming Mom's decision to abandon me there brought bad luck. That's why Grandma grew to resent me. She refused to breastfeed me even once I survived solely on sporadic bowls of rice gruel. My mother would never admit her involvement in my uncle's death. She turned the tables, blaming Grandma for superstitious beliefs, insisting Uncle would have been fine with timely hospital care. My grandmother was already advanced in years, and the grief of losing her son was too much. She collapsed unconscious from sheer anguish. My mother and the village head took charge, asking neighbors to dig a grave beside my grandfather's burial plot for my youngest uncle. We hosted a meal for those who helped, marking the end of the funeral arrangements. Throughout this time, Grandma alternated between weeping and sitting motionless in a daze. Within days, she seemed to have aged years beyond her time. Seeing her like this, my mom started nagging incessantly in her ear. Mom, what kind of mother doesn't help take care of her grandchildren? So stop acting like raising Liana was some great achievement. Don't think I don't notice how you favor your son. While Hugo was drinking milk, Liana got rice water. When Hugo turned up his nose at eggs, Liana devoured hers like she was starving, only for you to scold her as some reincarnated glutton. Every holiday, Hugo got stacks of new clothes while Liana got nothing. But one year I finally bought her something. Hugo went and soiled it. Mom shielded me behind her like a mother hen, relentlessly scolding Grandma. Finally, she turned and gently touched my face. Liana, I know you've been through so much. I forced out a few tears to play along. If she knew I was suffering, why couldn't she have been kinder to me? Grandma wasn't obligated to treat me well, but she's my mother. She should have cared. She saw everything, knew everything, yet she chose to turn a blind eye. Grandma never argued back. I couldn't tell if she was really listening. Maybe her mind was on Uncle all along. She probably didn't even register what Mom was saying. Seeing Grandma didn't object, Mom got all fired up. She even reprimanded Grandma with a hint of smugness. Mom, with Dad and my brother gone, I'm your only hope now. My eldest sister's-in-laws look down on our family. She sneaks back here like a thief. How could you possibly count on her? So if you want a decent life, you'll do as I say and let Liana call you Mom. My boyfriend's coming in 3 days. Don't either of you dare mess this up. Watching her rant with flying spittle, I couldn't help wondering why my mother had to be this kind of person. She dropped out right after coming of age, loafed around town, and after meeting my biological father, schemed to get pregnant and confronted his wife, only to get her arm broken in the fight. Still refusing to back down, she was dead set on bearing a son to secure her position. Instead, she ended up with me, a daughter, and by the time she went looking for him again, he'd moved away, having gained nothing but trouble. My mother washed her hands of me and dumped me at my grandma's. Now, for her happiness, I'm being made to call my grandmother Mom again. I don't like her, but this is my birthright, something I didn't choose and can't change. Though I can't choose my roots, how I live from here on out is entirely up to me. For the next 3 days, Mom spent hours on the phone with that man every day, for I couldn't detect a trace of grief on her face over losing her own brother. Strangely, though Uncle had always bullied me, his absence left an emptiness in my heart. 3 days later, the balding man entered the village carrying 2 crates of milk. The moment he stepped into Grandma's house, he comforted her with a sorrowful look, saying, though Hugo's gone, at least you've got Liana by your side. You're not completely alone. Grandma turned her clouded eyes toward me. I rushed to Mom and wrapped my arms affectionately around her waist. Mom, is this Uncle going to be my new dad? The man's face fell abruptly, yet a faint smile appeared on Grandma's weathered face. That smile carried both admiration and affection. It was warmth I hadn't seen in 12 years. Mom shoved me away abruptly. Liana, have you lost your mind? Stop shouting nonsense. I'm your sister. Tears streamed down my face. Mom, does my new dad not like me? I looked at the man pleadingly. Sir, I promise I won't intrude on you and Mom. I'll just live with Grandma in the village. But please, don't let her disown me. I can't call her sister. She's my mother. That's All I want to call her. The man turned to my mother. Susan, care to explain what's going on here? My mother looked panicked. Don't listen to the child's nonsense. After my brother passed, both she and my mother suffered trauma and haven't been quite right since. Wiping my tears, I pleaded. No, uncle, I'm not lying. I'm truly her daughter. If you don't believe me, we can do a blood test. I saw this in Empresses in the palace. That remark gave the man an idea. He stood up and challenged. How about we get a paternity test? You got the guts. My mom burst into tears right then. The man walked away without looking back, but made sure to take those 2 cartons of milk with him. My mom ran after him, sobbing. She came back moments later and slapped me twice across the face. You little bastard. What's your problem with your own mother? What the hell are you trying to pull? For the first time, Grandma shielded me behind her. Susan, have you lost your damn mind, making your daughter? Call me mom, that's downright sacrilegious, my mother sobbed. What choice did I have? I was already pregnant. If I hadn't sweet-talked and deceived him, would he have ever married me? With that, she left us standing there and went back inside to make another phone call. Grandma, and I stood in awkward silence until I finally broke it. Grandma, what if this man rejects mom and she dumps another baby on you to raise? Though Grandma never treated me kindly, she did raise me through to adulthood. Deep down I knew, if Mom had another baby and dumped it on Grandma, she'd still be powerless to refuse. Grandma stayed silent after hearing me out, but I caught an unusual glimmer in her eyes. Late that night, Mom fell into deep sleep, thinking I was asleep too. Grandma got up and slipped out, not returning until much later. The next morning, Mom woke up bursting for a pee and dashed straight for the yard. The moment she pushed open the door, she slipped and landed flat on her back. The January night was still bitterly cold enough to freeze water midair. Grandma had been outside so long that evening, she'd been pouring water by the doorstep, turning the ground beyond the threshold into a sheet of ice. My mother let out agonizing screams one after another, her pants quickly soaked through with blood. She begged me to help her to the clinic, but my grandmother dragged her back inside. It wasn't until Mom's face turned ghostly pale that Grandma finally went for help. The clinic doctor took one look and said it was beyond his capability, urging immediate transfer to the town hospital. Just as expected, Mom lost the baby when we reached town. Weakly lying in bed, she opened her mouth to curse the moment she saw Grandma and me, but Grandma didn't give her the chance. She took my hand and walked away. My mother was screaming hysterically behind me. You worthless brat. Stay in that godforsaken village with your grandmother forever then. Without me, you'll never escape. You'll end up marrying some peasant and popping out a dozen brats. Look at her, rotting in the mud, yet terrified her daughter might actually spread her wings. Pity she won't get her wish, because my father came looking for me. Not long after returning to the village, school started. On my first day in class, the homeroom teacher brought a man to see me. The moment I saw him, I froze. My face might as well have been peeled right off his. He was impeccably dressed, his eyes welling up the moment he saw me. Liana. You've grown so much, he murmured, hovering his hand above my head as if torn between touching me and holding back. Then with an awkward chuckle, he asked what had happened to my hair. I said it was my uncle who cut it with scissors. His face darkened with anger. Liana, how could your mother and grandmother let your uncle treat you like this? He's dead. How could they? Besides, regardless of how my grandmother's family treated me, they raised me. Who are you to judge? He froze, seemingly at a loss for how to continue the conversation. After a long silence, he handed me a brand new backpack. Liana, come study in the city with your dad. Okay. Turned out his own son had died in an accident earlier that year, and his first wife passed away shortly after from the shock. That woman had guarded her territory fiercely all these years, never imagining she'd ultimately have to surrender the family fortune. As for my biological father, no spring chicken himself, medical tests showed he could hardly father more children, which is when he remembered me. After asking around, he learned that I was living with my grandmother in the village and came specifically to find me, but I refused to go home with him. My biological father had no choice but to hand me a bank card and a cell phone. The card contained 200,000 yuan. Liana, you're still young, so I can't deposit too much money at once. When this runs out, just call me. I'll transfer more whenever you need. I don't like him, but I do love money. With money, I could buy a whole cream cake and wear clean clothes and shoes. With money, I could escape my mom and grandma, no longer hearing them call me bastard or slut, saying I'm greedy or starving. With money, I could go to junior high in town and use what I learned to fly far from this village, not like mom, who had to rely on men. Though my biological father asked the homeroom teacher to keep it confidential, yet within days, the news spread like wildfire. That day when I came home, Grandma suddenly grabbed my hand. She gently touched the chilblains on my hands, applying ointment bit by bit. Liana, you've endured so much these years at Grandma's. All that work has ruined your hands. But this wasn't Grandma's first time seeing my frostbitten hands. Since I was 6, I'd shouldered most household chores. Every winter brought chilblains on my hands and deep cracks across my face. Whenever this happened, Grandma would tell villagers I got them from reckless play. She said I was even more mischievous than my youngest uncle, after all These years, it was as if her vision had suddenly cleared. She could finally see the real reason behind my frostbite. Grandma didn't ask directly about my biological father, but I knew. She must have already figured it out. Even the village dogs knew the news, so there's no way Grandma hadn't heard. From that day on, Grandma treated me with increasing kindness. That summer, I graduated elementary school. With my homeroom teacher handling the paperwork, I started junior high in the county town when the new term began. Mom never contacted us, worried sick about me boarding at school. Grandma stubbornly followed me to the county town. We rented a small place, and my biological father would call me every week. I stopped asking for money, yet my bank account kept growing. On our first day in town, I took Grandma to the bakery. That's when I realized the cakes Mom used to buy for Uncle were the cheapest and unhealthiest kind. That day, I bought a 6-inch buttercream cake for over $300. And devoured the whole thing myself without even asking Grandma if she wanted any. Ended up licking every last bit of frosting clean too. Grinning, I asked Grandma, do I look pathetic licking frosting like this? The smile vanished from Grandma's face. She lowered her head, lips trembling. Liana's not trash. Liana eats just fine. Don't blame Grandma. She just loved your uncle too much. And resented your mother for stubbornly having you and dumping you on me. That's why she takes it all out on you. I said, it's fine. Now that Uncle's gone, you'll finally see me in a better light, right? Grandma's face twitched. I knew she was thinking about my uncle's death again. After that day, Grandma treated me even better. She cooked different delicious meals for me every day, though using the money from my biological father. Crack. Soon enough, I grew taller, put on some weight, and even learned to pick out stylish clothes for myself. I was living happily every day until the high school entrance exams ended. When my mother suddenly showed up, there she was again, standing before me heavily pregnant. 5, by the looks of it, she'll be giving birth soon. She did get married this time, but to a gambling addict, a man who not only gambles but also beats her when drunk. The moment my mother walked through the door, she slapped me across the face. You ungrateful brat, when your father came looking for you back then, why didn't you tell me? If you'd spoken up sooner, I could have married into that family with you. We wouldn't be living like this now. I covered my face and let out a bitter laugh. He came for me, not you. All he wanted was to acknowledge his daughter. He had no intention of making you his wife. My mother's tears came pouring down like rain. I'm your own mother. Do you have to twist the knife like this? You're just my biological mother. I told her, you've never looked at me properly since the day I was born. I know you resent me for being a girl. You think Dad would've married you if you'd given him a son, don't you? I glanced at her swollen belly. So what's it this time? If it's a boy, congratulations, you'll finally have permanent standing in my stepfather's house. My mother clenched her jaw and thrust out her hand. Enough talk. Your father gave you plenty of money, didn't he? Hand over $500,000. What gives you the right? That was from my dad. When Mom couldn't get the money, she screamed that I was heartless and threatened to beat me to death, saying she wished she'd never given birth to me. I laughed coldly. Go ahead, hit me, kill me if you dare. My father won't let you get away with this. And what about your precious new husband? How do you think he'd react if he found out you have a daughter about to start high school? Mom's face turned ashen, but I didn't let her leave empty-handed. My mom works as an insurance agent. Since I'm still a minor, I took out several critical illness and accident insurance policies listing my grandmother as the policyholder and my mom as the insured. Just the commissions alone earned her tens of thousands. After my mom left satisfied, my grandmother emerged from the bedroom. I asked her, Grandma, aren't you afraid Mom might have another baby and dump it on you to raise? Grandma shook her head. Not anymore. In fact, I hope she has a son now, Liana. From now on I'll pray to Guanyin every day for your mother to bear a son. A veil of hatred clouded Grandma's eyes. If she has a son, your future child will have to call him uncle, and if she mistreats you, just have your child get a haircut during New Year's month. Turns out Grandma had been holding a grudge against Mom because of Uncle all along. Her kindness toward me wasn't about my biological father's money after all. She just wanted to raise me properly, watch me marry and have children, to make Mom's son become my child's uncle, keeping Mom in constant fear. A month later, Mom died in childbirth along with the baby. Grandma didn't shed a tear when she heard the news. I sensed more regret in her. After all, the child my mother carried was indeed a boy. Had he lived, he could have grown up to be my child's uncle. After observing the 3-day mourning rites for my mother, I went to collect the insurance payout. All my mom cares about is earning commissions from selling insurance. Little does she know, I'm the sole beneficiary on all her policies. High school started, and my days became packed. Grandma takes great care of me, but I'm so swamped that I hardly ever eat at home. On rare mornings when I eat breakfast, I just grab some boiled eggs and bread to take to school. I've been treating my grandmother better and better. She's developed quite a sweet tooth in her old age. I regularly bring home desserts, drinks, and all sorts of fruits for her. Tears streamed down Grandma's face as she recalled scolding me harshly for eating a radish when I was little. I comforted her, saying it was all in the past, and tenderly began trimming her nails, but I accidentally clipped her Toenail too short, the small cut bled and stubbornly refused to heal. Within just half a month, it had festered into a deep wound. I tried all sorts of ointments and medications on her, but nothing worked. When we finally went to the hospital, the doctor said amputation was necessary. Grandma refused the amputation because there was no one to care for her afterward. We had no choice but to opt for conservative treatment. I kept taking time off work to take Grandma for repeated debridement procedures. The wound debridement was excruciatingly painful. Grandma couldn't bear the agony and eventually stopped going later. I told her that applying incense ash could help heal wounds, so she sent me to the temple to fetch some incense ash for her, just like the incense ash Zelda applied on me in my past life. That stuff was utterly useless for healing and actually worsened the condition. Grandma soon developed sepsis. She suffered terribly in her final moments. On her deathbed, she had a crisis of conscience and confessed she'd considered poisoning my food. I chuckled. Rat poison, was it? Grandma looked at me in shock. Grandma, I've known all along. That's why I stopped eating at home. But while you were busy trying to harm me, you didn't realize you've had diabetes this whole time. Grandma had been living with diabetes without even knowing it. I never meant to feed her so many sweets, but then I discovered she'd bought rat poison. The sugary drinks and desserts I bought worsened her diabetes until a simple foot wound turned gangrenous. Amputation became her only chance at survival. I've always known Grandma redirected her grief into hatred toward me the day Mom died. In her twisted logic, Uncle's collapse was divine retribution for trimming my hair. She's hellbent on killing me to avenge her son, so I refused to eat any home-cooked meals, even tossing out the eggs and milk I'd taken with me. Grandma was wheezing too hard to scold me, her words trapped in her throat. I couldn't bear watching her suffer. I wanted to help end her misery. There's something I've never told you. Remember how you couldn't understand why Uncle seemed to recover, then suddenly died? That night after you fell asleep, I shook him awake and snipped his bangs right in front of him. Your precious son who bullied me was actually a coward. One good scare from me, and his heart gave out. Grandma's face turned blue from suffocation. The enemy stood right before her eyes, yet she couldn't even curse her. It must have been agonizing, I thought. Grandma's breathing gradually faded away. The medical staff came to offer their condolences. They didn't understand. There was no grief to restrain. After Grandma passed away, I threw myself into my studies. My grades kept improving, thanks to both my hard work and the financial support from my biological father. After I got into a decent university through the college entrance exam, my biological father remarried, before legally registering his marriage with his new wife. He transferred the bulk of his savings to me. He said he owed my mother and me an apology, and now that she's gone, he's making it up to me. I embraced it wholeheartedly, reliving my girlhood days in college and even took up pastry making in my spare time, yet the scars in my heart never truly healed until one day in class, I heard the professor explain the tradition of not cutting hair in the first lunar month honors remembering the departed, not some superstition about killing uncles. That night, I had a dream. It was a fragment of my real memory. Truth be told, my mother was kind to me once, just that single time. It happened during Lunar New Year when I was just old enough to understand things. With relatives gathering at Grandma's house, Grandma gave apples to everyone except me. Mom got angry with Grandma over this and confronted her. Why does my daughter get nothing while all the other kids have theirs? Grandma retorted defiantly, she's just a little bastard, eh? Nobody's child. Feeding her would be a waste. If I treated her well, people would think our whole family is trash. That time, Grandma kept berating me for so long that Mom's expression gradually went numb. Then she seemed to agree. I was indeed that insufferable child my grandmother always complained about. From that moment on, her kindness toward me vanished completely. She tacitly allowed my childhood to become an odyssey of manufactured hardships, as if I were destined to endure 81 tribulations like the journey to the West, even if none existed naturally. And now she's gone, left alone to stitch together fragments of our mother-daughter bond in memory. But I must admit, this mending proves unbearably difficult. I awoke with tears streaming down my face. In that very moment, I forgave myself. Why should I force myself to reconcile with a relationship that gave me so little love? Parents who don't love their children, elders who don't cherish their juniors, just like those outdated customs perpetuated by rumors, not worthy of forgiveness. Story 2, my bestie and I got transported to a beast world together. I have 5 elite beast husbands, while she scored 6 drop-dead gorgeous men. I can read minds, and she's stuck with some crappy system, but I weigh 200 pounds, and she's dark as charcoal. Every day I hear 11 men calling us ugly toads, while she keeps complaining about negative affection points and the system being stingy as hell. 3 years into this transmigration, we're still untouched maidens. Finally one day, I went to my bestie in tears. Those scheming husbands only know how to party with their fake bros, good-for-nothing trash. I want a divorce. My bestie slammed the table. Those useless roosters can't even give us babies. What's the point of keeping their 8-pack abs around just to take up space? If you leave, I'm leaving too. When will this woman finally die? I wish this cave would collapse already. A boulder right on her head, I'd swear. Off meat for 10 years to thank the heavens. Ugh, seeing her every day makes me sick. In my groggy state, I heard a man's voice dripping with disgust and disdain. It was like having a persistent mosquito buzzing right by my ear. I turned over irritably, only to suddenly lose my balance and crash onto the hard stone floor, jolting awake with a pained grimace. The man on the bed watched me like a spectator at a circus act. Amusement in his voice as he asked, "Heh, this is the largest bed in the entire tribe. How did you manage to fall off?" My mother, the witch doctor of the 9 provinces, handpicked 5 elite beast husbands for me, the sharp-toned beauty Ashford being one of them. The gorgeous man reclined lazily on his side, his toned torso bronzed like sun-kissed wheat, proudly displaying those sculpted 8-pack abs right before my eyes. Yet after 3 years in this beast world, I've never laid a finger on him one even when sharing a bed. He'd grudgingly relegate me to the very edge, which explains how I ended up tumbling off, all because when I transmigrated here, I weighed over 200 pounds, sloppy, greasy, and downright obnoxious. Those 5 beast husbands were all forcibly acquired by my mother from various tribes, and they couldn't stand the sight of me. I worked my ass off for 3 years, lost weight, glowed up, even taught the women in the tribe to grow vegetables, still got nothing but their disgust undone. I stood up expressionlessly from the ground, dusting myself off while staring at the man who once made me drool with desire. I said coldly, "The bed's too small. Get out. Starting tonight, you're banned from my bed and my cave." I've always been lustful and overly tolerant of handsome men. These beast husbands never dared openly curse at me, so we've maintained decent surface-level relationships. This was the first time I'd ever shown genuine anger toward them. Ashford froze, his smile vanishing instantly. He bolted upright, snarling. No female has ever refused to share a bed with her beast husband. "Alara, are you trying to make me the laughingstock of the tribe?" I smiled faintly. "I merely wish to make you the tribe's first." First what? The first male ever rejected by his mate. The first ever driven from a female's den. Ignoring Ashford's hysterical screams, I turned and walked out of the cave, heading to the stream to freshen up. From a distance, I could see my best friend sitting by the stream, sighing heavily. As I got closer, I caught her melancholic inner monologue. 3 years of being a simp, and my affection meter's still in the negatives. My bestie and I have been transported to this beast world for 3 years now. My mom is the revered shaman, so she strong-armed 5 perfect beast husbands for me, her dad being the tribal chief. He basically kidnapped 6 hotties for her. I can read minds. Well, she's got that shady system, but when we first arrived, I weighed 200 pounds, and she was this scrawny little thing dark as charcoal. Between the 2 of us, we've had 11 husbands, yet not a single one truly loved us. Every day, we'd hear those 11 men call us ugly toads. After 3 years of relentless effort, I transformed from over 200 pounds to this slender figure, though some acne scars remain from accidentally eating poisonous herbs. My best friend went from being dark as charcoal to having a healthy complexion, though she still has some freckles on her nose and cheeks. Yet neither of our beast men husbands truly love us. Morella, sitting beside my confidant, I poured out my frustrations. Those scheming husbands of mine, all polite to my face, yet secretly despising me all along, just because they refused to share my bed. All 4 beastmen gradually left over these 3 years, using hunting as excuses, never returning, only occasionally sending word through messenger birds. The sole one who stayed, Ashford, won't even let me touch him, let alone the fact he'd rather see me dead. These so-called bros with their fake camaraderie, leaving a young woman like me living like a widow. I can't take it anymore. I want a divorce. My bestie clenched her fists so hard she smashed a nearby rock barehanded. Fuming, she said, 3 years I've been simping, pampering those 6 at home, yet none will share my bed. My affection meter's stuck in the negatives. What's the difference between these men and a rooster that can't lay eggs? Divorce. If you're leaving, then I'm leaving too. Ashford had just reached the creek when he overheard our heated exchange. His face darkened like spilled ink. Long legs closed the distance in 2 strides, seized my wrist, and yanked me off the boulder. Quit hanging around that hellcat. The whole tribe knows her vicious reputation. Her poisonous nonsense will corrupt you sooner or later. My sister-in-arms inherited her father's divine strength. As a female, she outmuscles most males. Hearing Ashford's words, she flew into a rage and started pummeling him with her tiny fists. The blows actually sent the 8-pack up at Ashford stumbling backward, blood trickling from his lips. Bullshit, her best friend screamed. Your incompetence in pleasing a female is none of my business. I'll make Alara divorce you and get herself a new beast husband. No, make that 10 new husbands. Ashford didn't understand what divorce meant, and the conversation he'd eavesdropped on had left him thoroughly confused, but now he understood. Divorce meant she didn't want him anymore. Ashford flushed crimson and retorted, "You've got more beast husbands than her, yet you haven't popped out any more pups." Ashford had crossed her best friend's line. Seeing their fight was about to break out, I quickly stepped in to stop them, but before I could mediate, the sound of war horns echoed through the air. Ashford's face turned pale. "It's a raid from another tribe. Stay hidden, I'll hold them off." He bolted outside while my best friend shielded me as we hurried toward the cave. We've had no tribal conflicts in 3 years here. Why would fighting break out now? I worriedly glanced toward where Ashford had disappeared. My friend chimed in. Exactly. Your mom snatched 5 men from other tribes before without causing trouble. What could possibly provoke them now? Maybe mom caused another mess while practicing medicine in those tribes. The answer to this question soon became clear. The Rolf tribe allied with 6 others, overwhelming us with sheer numbers and quickly defeating our clan. My best friend and I were discovered. Seeing the spear at her father's throat, we surrendered and joined our tribespeople in a clearing. The Rolf chieftain glared fiercely, bellowing, "Which among you is Alara, the medicine woman's daughter?" My best friend shot me a look. "See, it's all because of your mom." I was cursing under my breath. I reluctantly took a step forward, then a familiar voice rang out. We agreed on non-aggression. "What right do your tribes have to take people here? Alara's mother is the greatest healer on the continent. You won't lay a finger on her daughter." Ashford was bound to the tree trunk with vines, thrashing desperately as the green tendrils left angry red marks across his skin without mercy. He resembled a caged beast, his struggles utterly futile against the restraints, yet those crimson eyes remained fixed on me with unsettling intensity. Perhaps the distance was too great. I never caught the curses he must have been hurling at me in his mind. I could actually hear the inner thoughts of my bestie's 6 beastly husbands nearby. "Hope my sweetheart won't get dragged into trouble by this woman. Her mother must have snatched another mate for her again. My darling always says forced love never lasts. My baby's still the best. At least she doesn't have a troublemaker for a mother." My sweetheart looks so worried. It breaks my heart. If she rushes in to save her, I'll fight with everything I've got. Thank goodness I didn't end up as that fat cow's beast of a husband. I looked down at my hourglass figure, and a sudden surge of anger welled up inside me. A bestie's sweet talk is the devil's whisper. She calls this negative charm points. She's got those 6 men wrapped around her little finger, each with their own cringy pet name, Sugar Overload. I shot my best friend a resentful glance. She tilted her head and mouthed, "What's wrong? Gotta poop." I rolled my eyes at her, turning to the chieftain. I declared, "I am Alara, that loudmouth over there, just our village idiot. Pay him no mind." "What's wrong? What do you need from me?" Ashford's face twisted in rage when I called him an idiot. "I'm your beast husband. Even if you don't want me, I'll always be your beast husband." Standing in the crowd, I could practically feel the prying eyes burning into my back. The chief of Rolf tribe paid no heed to Ashford's words. With grave expression, he declared, "Your 4 beast husbands have plundered treasures from 7 tribes this past year: the blood Ganoderma from Hale tribe, winter fiber blossoms from Voss tribe, and..." He recited the offenses like a prosecutor listing criminal evidence too. Finally, he declared, "And there's also a beautiful female from our Rolf tribe. That's why the 7 tribes have united to reclaim our treasure. I'll spare the other beastmen, but you, Alara, must return with our tribe until your mates return our treasure. If the treasure isn't returned within 10 days, then you, Alara, shall become a female of our Rolf tribe, and your mother will only be allowed to heal beast men from our 7 tribes henceforth." I could hear people's thoughts, so I knew every word he said was true. His words left the entire clan speechless. Only Ashford refused to believe it. No, they wouldn't do such things. They only went out to. I let out a silent sigh. I keep wondering why I didn't get divorced sooner. Then I wouldn't be stuck in this miserable marriage and tangled up in all this trouble. But dragging my mother into this is truly unfair to her. Cutting Ashford off, I addressed the crowd. "My mother serves as the shaman for all tribes. If you try to monopolize her, the other tribes won't stand for it. And if you dare break the pact and harm the beast folk, mark my words, your own people will face retaliation from other tribes someday. This was all my beast husband's fault, so I'll take responsibility. Spare my tribe today, and I'll go with you. I'll become the mate for all 7 of your tribes. Is that acceptable? In this beast world, even a single female in 100 strong tribe is considered a bragging right. Some tribes don't even have a single female member. If I go with them now, once I inherit the shaman's position, I'll be completely at their disposal." The chief of the Eno tribe was whispering with others in discussion, yet I could hear my best friend gushing with admiration behind me. "You lucky girl, living the high life like this. Were you planning this divorce all along? 7 tribes worth of men to choose from. What a dream. When you get there, could you save me a few egg layers, the kind that lay pretty eggs?" Her beast husbands immediately got jealous upon hearing this, all clamoring for an explanation from their wife. Suddenly, the voices in my ears became much livelier, yet amidst the clamor, I still clearly heard Ashford's inner thoughts. "She wanted a divorce all along. She stopped wanting me ages ago. It's over." I turned to Ashford, meeting his wounded gaze head-on. The previous ferocity in his eyes had vanished, replaced by a vulnerable pleading look, like a rain-soaked puppy abandoned on the roadside. Those pitiful, damp eyes softened my heart. All 4 of my beastmen husbands ran away. Ashford's been the only one who's stuck with me all year, even though he wanted me dead this morning. He usually hunts for food, feeds me 3 meals a day, heats bathwater daily, and never made me wash a single animal hide. What if men in those 7 tribes aren't as obedient, handsome, or ripped as him? Maybe I should just bring Ashford along as a temporary solution. The chief of the Eno tribe had already discussed with them and agreed to my decision. I hesitated to speak, ultimately keeping silent about bringing Ashford along. A group of orcs first led me out of the clan, then lowered their spears and cut the vines, sparing my people. My best friend shouted at me, "Remember me when you're rich. I want a handsome rooster." I turned back and instructed, "Ashford's yours now. Just gag him and he'll be somewhat serviceable." Ashford was still bound by the vines. Upon hearing this, his eyes turned blood-red instantly. With a furious roar to the heavens, he miraculously broke free from his restraints and transformed into a massive white tiger before everyone's eyes, charging straight at me. An actual werbeast transformation, a sight not seen in 100 years. I've only been here for 3 years, never seen anything like this before. My face instantly turned ghostly pale. Oh no, that damn Ashford kid. Did I piss him off so badly he's about to go cannibal on me? Mother once told me, the beastfolk tribes have been locked in endless conflict across this continent. Despite her years of tireless diplomacy, she still couldn't broker a non-aggression pact between all the clans. Only through Orcish transformation can the continent be united, but once transformed, the orc loses all reason to primal instincts, becoming an unstoppable monstrosity. Only its chosen mate can calm its fury, otherwise, the creature's rampage would drown the entire tribe in rivers of blood. Every orc knows this truth. They trembled in terror at Ashford's sudden transformation, frozen in place with fear, as Ashford lunged at me with jaws agape. Only my best friend reacted instantly, hurling a nearby spear at the white tiger. Alara, look out. The spear pierced the tiger's back, but it barely flinched, clamping me in its bloody maw. It bolted into the jungle. The towering trees on both sides whizzed past my vision. The occasional snap of breaking branches made me flinch. Each crack sounded like my bones being crushed between tiger fangs. The white tiger finally halted by the lakeside, gently setting me down. Then it threw its head back and roared at the sky, just as I expected it to make another move. The white tiger transformed into a beastman in the blink of an eye before collapsing to the ground. The spear thrown by my best friend, its stone-tipped point still attached to the wooden shaft, pierced Ashford's back, sending blood gushing out. Summoning his last strength, he weakly reached out and pushed me. Run, now. If you won't have me, you can't have any other beast husband either. That soft body of yours. I've been restraining myself from touching it, and no one else gets to either. For a moment I thought I'd misheard, studying my nerves. I untied the stone knife and woven vine pouch from my waist, crouched to retrieve medicinal herbs, and sliced a long strip of hide from my skirt's hem. Hang in there, let me pull this out for you, I said. Yet Ashford stubbornly insisted, you run after. Taking punches from his close friend and being impaled by the spear, Ashford's voice was now weak and labored, but that didn't stop him from speaking his mind. I'm dying, I can't drag her down with me, but she smells so sweet, and I never even got to hold her. Those 6 beastly husbands next door are the vilest creatures alive, bragging nonstop about how gentle and caring their mate is. Darling, this, sweetheart, that makes me sick. My mate's the prettiest and kindest, that shrew of theirs isn't fit to lick her boots. Sob. If I'd known death was coming, I'd have stripped her bare last night and been single for 3 years. Just hearing something risque makes my cheeks burn now. I swiftly pulled out the spear, pressed the hemostatic herbs onto the wound, and secured them with animal hide. Only after finishing all this did I realize the inner voice had gone silent. I thought Ashford had passed out from the pain. Then I looked up and met his sparkling eyes. She touched my back. Her hands are so small and soft. I just want to kiss them, not just her hands. Her lips look so kissable too. And I rummaged through another small woven bag, pulled out a particular herb, and swiftly stuffed it into Ashford's mouth. He passed out almost immediately. At last, silence descended upon my world. As I washed the bloodstains from Ashford's body with lake water, my mind began to wander. Could it be that shapeshifting into a beastman alters their personality, or does this physical transformation trigger their mating cycle? Alternatively, has Ashford's beast form unleashed his primal instincts? Is he getting desperate now? Yeah, that must be it. This kid's really starving. Right after crossing over, the 5 beastmen my mother forcibly claimed for me lay battered and bruised, trussed up like livestock in my cave. Through their thoughts, I learned they saw me as a hideous, cruel, and domineering woman. To break these 5 beastmen into servitude, I drugged them with herbs, starved them while bound, beat them mercilessly with clubs, and lashed them with thorn vines. They all despised me. Every beastman was cursing me and my mother, in their hearts overcome with guilt. I immediately apologized and set them free. I started losing weight and learning medicine from my mother, going out of my way to please them daily. Precious herbs, hand-woven trinkets, even fresh game gifted by other males, I'd instantly pass along to them. Yet the herbs were returned for my own use, the carefully crafted trinkets tossed where eyes couldn't see, and the choice cuts of meat were hurled into fellow beastmen's faces instead. The moment I approach them, they scatter like frightened rabbits, as if they've seen a ghost. I always catch those five whispering among themselves just out of earshot, making me feel like the odd one out. Just when I think I'm finally getting closer to one of the hunters, they'd vanish at dawn the next day with some hunting excuse. 1, 2, 3, for 3 in the end. Only Ashford remained by my side. He had the worst temper, constantly yelling at me, avoiding me like the plague, just like the other beastmen. Yet every morning I'd wake to freshly cleaned pelts beside me, savor roasted meat daily, and our cave never lacked fruits, not even those hard-to-reach cliffside berries. I thought this last beastman had finally accepted me. I woke up only to hear his inner thoughts wishing me dead, so I figured, rather than waiting for him to disappear on some hunting trip one day, I'd dump him first. Why did you save me? Why let me escape? Why entertain such sentimental thoughts? Ashford was too heavy to move, so I could only build a fire by the lakeside, poking his chiseled handsome face while waiting for him to wake up, muttering to myself, why did you curse at me this morning, telling me to die, even wished I'd get crushed by rocks? How cruel can you be? I've already lost weight successfully. Do I really make you want to vomit just by seeing me? You, Ashford cut me off before I could finish speaking. I wasn't cursing at you. It was that woman next door. His eyes flew open as he tried to sit up agitatedly, only to gasp in pain when the movement tugged at his wounds. Still, he frantically explained, I just can't stand that woman next door, always pestering you to put on face masks and do beauty treatments for her. She's even been monopolizing you at bedtime for days. This morning, before you even woke up, she was lurking by the door trying to see you. You looked so adorable sleeping there. I was just about to steal a kiss when she ruined everything. After shooing her away, I got angrier the more I thought about it and cursed her in my heart. How could I ever bring myself to scold you? That actually makes sense. Ashford often yells at me, but it's all bark, never any real insults. I often hear him cursing the neighbors. The man before me was so anxious his eyes were turning red. Terrified I wouldn't believe him, my heart skipped a beat unexpectedly. Night has fallen. The moonlit night was intoxicating, while the flickering flames seemed to dance wildly in my chest with scorching intensity. Without hesitation, I leaned in for the kiss. Ashford's body tensed instantly, yet within mere seconds, the fire's heat had transferred to him. He pulled me closer, his warm body banishing the night's chill. The dry firewood crackled nearby, while the windless lake rippled gently in the distance. Faint, fragmented sounds rose above the chirping of insects and birds. Pure bliss. When I woke the next morning, every inch of my body ached with indescribable soreness. As I opened my eyes, Ashford lay beside me on his side, propping his head up with a smile. His gaze held lazy contentment, and just a hint of smugness. Is the wound bleeding? Concerned about his violent movements last night, I asked gently, but it wasn't Ashford who answered me. Instead came a chilling voice, both foreign and hauntingly familiar. Let him bleed more. Good riddance if he dies. I froze in shock. Wasn't that the voice of Silas, my first beast husband who ran away? Alara, what about you? Aren't you cold without clothes? Wait, that deceptively gentle yet gritted teeth voice belongs to Eli, my second runaway beast husband. Damn woman, you've never been this tender with me before. And this is Bram, my third runaway tyrant of a beast husband. Sigh, looks like she's forgotten all four of us. That familiar green tea scent, it's Xander, my fourth runaway beast husband. I closed my eyes, trying to wake up again. This must be a dream. It has to be. This isn't a dream. Ashford's voice held unprecedented joy as his warm kiss brushed my forehead, whispering, open your eyes, they've returned. Then came the sound of Ashford being forcibly dragged away, accompanied by the murmurs of several voices. You got all the perks and still dare to kiss her. Get lost. Your peacock strut makes me sick. Too weak to stand. Need us to carry you. Alara, get up now. The floor's freezing, hearing the voices of those I'd longed for. Day and night, I still couldn't bring myself to open my eyes, feeling only a sting in my nose. I raised my hands to cover my eyes, only to feel warmth pooling in my palms. Even with my utmost restraint, a choked sob of anguish escaped my throat. Why must I relive the agony of abandonment every time I dare believe I'm loved? No, I've finally been chosen by Ashford without hesitation, yet all those who once abandoned me have returned. I covered my face and wept silently as the surroundings fell Abruptly still, a pair of strong arms swept me off my feet, my body pressed against an icy chest, and that long mist faint fragrance washed over me. Even after more than 2 years apart, I could instantly recognize it. This was Silas's scent. I'm sorry. Silas's voice was as cold as his chest, yet laced with endless remorse. His chest gradually grew warm, the tone grew even more submissive. I'm sorry. And then, I found myself somewhat anticipating his next explanation, but I shouldn't hold out hope for someone who abandoned me. Hope only leads to disappointment. I never want to experience that feeling of abandonment again. At this thought, I lowered my hands from my tear-streaked face to see my 5 beast husbands surrounding me, their gazes filled with what seemed like genuine tenderness. This was a scene beyond my wildest dreams. I reached out both hands toward Ashford, the most familiar among them. Hold me. Ashford eagerly stretched out his arms with sheer delight. You, Silas. Started urgently, but swallowed his words upon seeing my tear-streaked, pitiful face. Clenching his teeth, he handed me over to Ashford's embrace. He let out a soft sigh, simply said, "Let's go back to the tribe. Did you unlock another cheat ability? With teleportation and peerless martial skills, I captured all 5 of your beast husbands in one go." Back at the tribe, my bestie immediately sidled up to me, prying with gossipy curiosity. When her eyes landed on the red marks on my neck, she instantly flashed a fawning grin, lowering her voice to whisper, "Forget your golden fingers, hand over that secret herbal remedy first. I've been feeding my men like livestock every damn day, make them as virile and dominant as your beastly husband." Her words trailed off mid-sentence. Noticing my stony expression, she finally saw my puffy, red-rimmed eyes, clear signs I'd been crying. A dreadful thought flashed through her mind. Her face turned grave instantly as she grabbed my hand, soothing me gently. "It's okay, just pretend some stray dog bit you last night. Tell me, which mutt was it? I'll beat the hell out of him." Ashford couldn't help cursing at her. "You're the dog here. How do your beastly husbands even control you? Shouldn't they keep you leashed?" The best friend raised her tiny fist again. "You little bastard. Don't get cocky just because you've got status now. Alara will take 10 more beast husbands eventually. Then you'll just be some washed-up house husband, her 6th beast." Husbands immediately swarmed in, forcibly restraining her tiny fists and dragging her aside. "Honey, don't provoke him. He can shift into beast form now. Come here, sweetheart. Let me rub your little hands. Be good now, or you'll turn into a little grump face again." Where best friends gather for nothing but good times and laughter, my gloomy mood completely vanished after her little performance, forcing a faint smile. I told my best friend, "I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Come stay with me tonight, I'll tell you everything." Ashford pursed his lips, but said nothing. My best friend agreed with delight, then suddenly remembered something and said, "Oh right, Alara, your mother's back and currently negotiating with representatives from the 7 tribes." We hurried over, just in time to see my mother, missing for over 2 years, standing triumphantly in the crowd, grinning from ear to ear. "Ha, you think I'm lying to you?" The Rolf tribe chieftain turned pale, his voice trembling with weak defiance. "We witnessed Ashford transforming into a white tiger with our own eyes, but that's already a once-in-a-century event. Now you claim your daughter's other 4 beast husbands can also shapeshift. That's utterly preposterous," my mother declared confidently. "I've scoured the 9 provinces to handpick these 5 beast husbands for my daughter, each possessing the latent potential for bestial transformation. When their passion and desire reach their peak, and they recognize their one true mate, it awakens the most ancient bloodline of beastmen, gradually transforming them into their beast forms. Over these millennia, countless beastmen have failed their transformations, becoming monstrous abominations. Her 4 husbands left the tribe before transforming, fearing they might harm my daughter, and followed me to seek rare herbs to suppress their feral instincts, yet true to her lineage. My daughter not only triggered the last husband's transformation in record time but also soothed him, helping suppress his beastly nature to regain human form. So many of my questions found their answers in this moment. Silas, who had been following me all along, whispered, "I never abandoned you, surely you know. I was the first one to fall for you." He plucked at the strings of my heart with the gentlest touch. Eli, Bram, and Xander chimed in unison. "We never even considered leaving you. They were simply waiting for the right moment to return." "I'm in agony." They weren't happy either. Eli sighed softly. "The 5 of us knew you could hear our thoughts long ago, but our inner desires would have terrified you. That's why we kept our distance." Bram growled in frustration. "Your mother said we only needed a few more herbs. That's why we resorted to stealing. We just wanted to return to you faster." Xander's voice dripped with centuries of pent-up anguish. "We've suppressed our deepest feelings for so long, only to return and find our most precious mate lying cold on the lakeshore sands." At that moment, all 4 of them could have torn Ashford apart with their bare hands. My mind is overloaded with information. After watching the orcs from other tribes argue with my mother and leave in defeat, she came over to talk to me, leaving my head spinning. When my mother asked me something and got no response, she nudged me, then everything went black as I completely passed out. My body kept alternating between chills and fever. In a daze, I recalled when I First transmigrated to the beast world, except for that first day when Silas, bound and furious, called me a vile woman. I rarely heard his inner thoughts afterward. Everyone else called me an ugly toad. Only Silas stood quietly by, silent in both speech and mind. He was the first one I noticed, and for a while I even suspected he might be mute. But every morning when I went running before dawn, I'd always find Silas sharpening his stone knife by the riverside along that path. Once when it suddenly started raining, I slipped and took a nasty fall, my 100 kilograms frame crashing hard onto the flagstones, leaving me writhing in pain and unable to get up. He was the one who carried me back to the cave, even though I was clearly heavy. He never once called me fat while carrying me on his back. After that, I kept finding ways to thank him and please him, hoping that once I lost weight, he'd carry me again. Then I could tell him, "Last time you carried me, I was so heavy, it must have been exhausting, right? Is it easier this time?" But before I could even lose the weight, Silas left. Without a word, he told Eli to let me know he'd gone hunting, leaving me a flint knife that I still wear at my waist to this day. Turns out he never looked down on me. He'd actually liked me all along. Where's my flint knife? Did I leave it by the lakeside? My hands began fidgeting unconsciously. Just then, a mischievous voice purred in my ear. Who knew this little minx could be so wild? It was my bestie. My eyes flew open just in time to catch her wicked grin. She patted my hand resting on her waist and chuckled, "Hey now, stop feeling me up. I only have 2 legs, you know." Ugh, what a mood killer. My best friend burst into even heartier laughter. She pulled me into a tight embrace, only loosening her grip when she felt my body temperature drop. "Phew, you've been burning up for a full day and night. I thought you were dead. In this beast world, I'd be left all alone and pitiful," just as I was about to comfort her. She continued, "Handling all these men by myself without your herbal remedies would wreck my health. Why not share a few with me? Don't mention it." My bestie scoffed. "The men with negative affection points that I'm dumping on you. How many points could you possibly raise?" Bringing it up, I asked, have you considered the system might be glitching? The way I see it, those beast husbands of yours are absolutely smitten. Definitely not negative numbers." My bestie sighed. "Don't you think I know my own system? When I first transmigrated, their affection meters showed bright red zeros, then before I knew it, they all turned into bold green ones. If that's not negative, what is? Every time I see that green, it reminds me of my plummeting stocks before I transmigrated. God, I'm such an idiot. Really, I'd rather question the system than doubt my bestie's intelligence. Her words enlightened me as much as a broken clock tells time. Clenching my fist to resist slapping her, I suggested, "Why not try redeeming something from the system store? What if that green one actually means maxed out strategy points?" "That's impossible." The moment my bestie finished speaking, a giant rooster materialized out of nowhere beneath our blanket. Cock-a-doodle-doo. The rooster's crow mingled with the crisp sound of my palm smacking my friend's butt and her tearful, joyful shrieks. "Wah, I'm such an idiot." Really, her bestie system was finally vindicated. She began exchanging for seeds with planting manuals, poultry with raising guides, even sows with postpartum care instructions, instantly becoming our tribe's goddess-like figure. Her father was so thrilled he immediately decided to pass his position to her, making her the new chieftain. My best friend refused with righteous indignation, declaring, "I'll wait until Alara recovers, then take her beyond the tribe, let her see the kingdom I've conquered for her." During my convalescence, the noise became unbearable. I sent Ashford outside to transform into his beast form, scaring off a whole crowd of nosy beastmen, finally granting me some peace. Then I heard my friend chuckle, "This white tiger mount is nice, but it'd be perfect if we could get an azure dragon to match." This infuriated Ashford, sparking an argument between them. "I'm a mated orc, damn it. If you're so obsessed with breeding, go find yourself 10,000 mates." Even her 6 best friends couldn't take this nonsense anymore. The noise was giving me a splitting headache. With just one glance from Silas, the 3 others silently escorted me out of the cave. We arrived at a secluded valley. Finally, peace and quiet. No more Ashford sleeping by my bed like a guard dog, ranting about securing against thieves, fires, and my best friend, just Silas grilling meat, Eli tending the fire, Bram feeding me berries, and Xander handing me water. I recovered from my illness quickly. They even applied the ointment my mother left for me, saying it could neutralize residual toxins and fade scars. They mentioned my mother had also prepared medicine to treat my best friend's condition years ago. She'd warned my friend's 6 beast husbands since childhood. My friend had behaved unusually, hunting like a male beastkin with her father and damaging her health. They mustn't share a bed until she fully recovered. This is the last dose of medicine, and you won't need to follow these restrictions anymore. I can already imagine how lively it'll be next door day and night once my bestie recovers. I ended up staying in the canyon a while longer. When I saw my best friend again, she was amazed my acne and scars had vanished. While I marveled at her flawless, porcelain skin, she called me a heartbreaker. I praised her as a celestial beauty. After our mutual admiration society session, we left the tribe and went our separate ways, with the help of her system and 6 beast husbands. She led tribes beyond their own to cultivate crops and raise livestock, ensuring no beastkin would go hungry or cold, accompanied by 5 shape-shifting warriors. I forged peace among warring beastkin clans through sheer might, establishing accords that brought lasting harmony to the beast world. Time flowed like a river. 5 years later, we reunited in the waters of the 9 provinces continent, where the once divided beast folk tribes had united, living in peace and prosperity. In those same waters, we discovered a beautiful island and made it our home. Seasons came and went, year after year. This time, no one would be left behind. Story. 2 or 3 months before the apocalypse was predicted to arrive, someone issued a warning. This person was likely a top-notch hacker, as they managed to take over television screens during prime time at 8 p.m., broadcasting in bold letters, "Countdown to Doomsday, 100 days, stockpile food and stay indoors," with the text flashing across the screen in an ostentatious marquee effect. This caused quite a stir over the following days, dominating trending searches and news headlines, with everyone eagerly discussing the warning. The authorities quickly responded by announcing that the person responsible for the rumor had been arrested and urged the public not to panic. After a lot of discussions, some believed the warning, while others did not, but as time passed, the commotion gradually subsided. After all, people still had to work and live their lives. Nobody wanted to spend too much energy on an unsubstantiated alert, but I did. Firstly, I've always been extremely cautious and valued my life. Secondly, I'm wealthy, very wealthy. I'm a second-generation demolition beneficiary. My family's rural properties included 3 large courtyard houses and a mountain, which were perfectly timed with the construction of an airport, boosting my bank account by tens and hundreds of millions, nearly $1 billion. Even if I did nothing else for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have to worry about food or drink. Moreover, I'm a rather boring person with no expensive hobbies. I just watch TV series, read novels, and tend to my plants every morning and evening. I take a simple walk to walk the dog and buy groceries. The dog was a stray, a little mongrel, which was somewhat cute as a puppy but grew up to be rather plain and clumsy. I don't like dogs. They are noisy, need to be fed, and need to be walked. I never planned to keep one, but one day someone left it in the basket of my electric scooter. At that time, I hadn't yet received the demolition compensation, and the scooter was my main mode of transport. Even after becoming wealthy, I continued riding that electric scooter. It wasn't broken, so why not ride it? Plus, in the narrow streets of the old town, an electric scooter is convenient. This dog was just a month old when it was left in my scooter's basket, its eyes shiny and watery, whimpering as it looked at me. I asked around, but no one wanted it. A mongrel isn't worth much, and abandoning it would have meant certain death, so I took it home. I named it Lucky and fed it crudely. Now, it has grown into a 1.5-year-old adult dog. Despite the warning, life went on as usual for everyone else, but I got busy. Having a lot of money gave me a high margin for error. If it was just a rumor, what of it? Spending a few million to refurbish a warehouse and stockpile millions of pounds of grain wouldn't affect my future lifestyle, although it was probably just a rumor. What if it was true? As a nouveau riche, aside from having money, I was good for nothing. If the apocalypse really came, money would be the most useless piece of paper, and I would certainly be among the first to perish. It seemed better to use this paper while it still held value, to create some security for the future. I had already considered a suitable location in mind, a small-scale frozen food storage and processing factory, located on the outskirts, a bit remote. I used to pass it every day when I worked as a bus conductor. I approached the factory manager and offered a generous sum. These days, business was tough, and the factory was barely surviving. Encountering someone like me, willing to spend liberally, they agreed immediately. The area was secluded, with only another abandoned factory nearby. It was once a leading local enterprise in its early years, but was phased out due to market advancements and eventually declared bankruptcy. Since then, it has been left abandoned. I hired a construction crew of about 20 people, all from out of town. Completing this job would allow them to earn some money just in time to go home for the Lunar New Year. I promised them a high wage and generously paid half up front. Motivated by the money, the workers got busy with great enthusiasm. My requirements were not too demanding. It was mainly about renovation and reinforcement, sparing no expense on materials, aiming only for quality and efficiency. The perimeter walls in the building were raised, a well was dug in the yard, a new water pump generator was purchased, solar panels were installed, the cold storage's electrical system was repaired, and a thick metal gate, several inches thick, was custom installed. The renovation master joked that even a Vault would use such a door. I just smiled and didn't respond to be on the safe side. I also had the workers fix up a traditional Kong stove heater, with the weather cooling down. If technology fails, at least I can heat the Kong and won't freeze to death. After the renovations, the factory transformed into a well-defended fortress where those inside could live securely and self-sufficiently, and as long as I didn't open the door, no one from the outside could come in. This transformation was costly, but it didn't matter, as I had the money by now. 2 months had passed. Over the next month, I planned to fill this fortress. I posted an ad on the local information network seeking reliable suppliers for a medium-sized supermarket. Within 3 days, suppliers from various industries nearly overwhelmed my phone with offers of grains, oils, rice, noodles, drinks, instant foods, household products, clothing, home goods, medicinal herbs, health products, seeds, and agricultural tools, as long as the quality was decent and the price reasonable, with delivery included. I practically accepted everything. The cold storage was now filled with an abundance of meat and seafood, which the previous factory owner had generously given to me. Though frozen, I wasn't picky, as I'm not very demanding about food and drink. Additionally, I stocked up a lot of dog food for Lucky, covering various brands and filling a small warehouse. The countdown was at 100 days. At 6 in the morning, I opened my eyes in bed. The old city district was bustling in the morning, with the steam rising from the downstairs bun shop, and the stalls for fried dough sticks, pancakes, and tofu pudding were already up, as people began their busy day. The apocalypse, it seems, was just a rumor. I took Lucky downstairs as usual for a walk in the park across the street, but the morning exercise group was nowhere to be seen. This group, consisting of over 20 elderly people, practiced Tai Chi here every morning, rain or shine. For many years, when I asked a lady who also came to walk her dog, she mentioned that the members of the exercise group had suddenly fallen ill this morning and were rushed to the hospital. Did they all get sick? I was somewhat shocked. Yes, around dawn, they were all taken away by ambulance. The lady lowered her voice. It seems to be some contagious madness, shouting and screaming, quite frightening. I'm planning to stay with my daughter for a few days. I stood there, stunned. Perhaps I was being overly sensitive, but a sudden collective illness with shouting and screaming made me think of a zombie virus, and today was precisely the 100th day of the alert. Could there be so many coincidences? After walking the dog, I returned home. Upon checking the local news website, I realized that there had been a sudden outbreak of a mysterious madness infecting many people around me, all starting just after midnight today. I noticed that nobody had linked this to the apocalypse warning issued 3 months ago. Curious. I posted a message. Do you all remember the 100-day apocalypse warning? Today marks the 100th day. 3 seconds after posting, my account was suspended for sharing inappropriate content. Feeling somewhat gloomy, I shut down my computer and turned on a video app on my phone. The latest clip showed a man going mad and attacking pedestrians in a mall in a major city. The comments below the video were varied, with most people guessing it might be rabies, but some were already speculating it could be connected to the apocalyptic warning. It seemed straight out of a zombie apocalypse movie. Without further hesitation, I quickly packed some essentials, took my dog, and drove towards the outskirts in my newly purchased car. The streets were unusually empty. Perhaps everyone had sensed something was off and decided to stay indoors. An hour later, I arrived at my destination. I drove through the gate, locked it behind me, activated the surveillance cameras and electric fence, and meticulously checked all the equipment before settling back into my chair to continue browsing the local news online. In just 1 hour, the situation had escalated beyond control. More and more people were succumbing to the madness, running into the streets, bursting into residential areas, and attacking anyone in sight. The radio repeatedly urged residents to lock their doors and windows and stay at home, awaiting rescue. The entire city was in chaos. The highways were clogged with vehicles as people tried to escape, but no one knew where it was safe to go. A month has now passed. During this last month, a lot has happened. Since the internet went down, I've been relying on a radio to listen to updates from the capital station. The broadcasts reported that the virus had become a global pandemic, with multiple countries falling one after the other. My city was just a minor scene in this vast catastrophe. I don't know how many people are left alive in the city or their current conditions, but all I can do is wait. I'm no action hero from those apocalypse movies, able to shoot my way out. I'm just a nouveau riche who chose this remote and desolate location in the suburbs for safety. The only things my surveillance cameras capture are birds flying up and down. My warehouse is well stocked, enough to last me alone for 3 to 5 years without issues, though I regret not having fresh vegetables. That's not a big problem, though. Once spring comes and it warms up, I can till the soil in the yard. And plant some myself. I have plenty of seeds, radishes, cabbages, peas. Gardening is simple these days. Indoors can be quite boring, but at least I have Lucky, my dog, whose goofy face has become much more endearing. It's now deep winter, with temperatures around -4 or 5 degrees Celsius. My generator is working well, so heating and electricity are not an issue, and life is quite comfortable. I took 2 chicken carcasses from the freezer, used one to stew with potatoes, and boiled the other for Lucky's dinner. As I listened to the radio broadcast, it was a morning broadcast rerun, announcing that human sanctuaries were being constructed consecutively in the capital and several other cities. Volunteers would soon be dispatched nationwide to search for survivors. It must be said, the nation's response was impressively swift. However, I didn't hold much hope. The city I live in is just a typical second-tier city. Who knows when it will be our turn, let alone the fact that I've hidden myself away in this godforsaken suburb. It would probably take a grid search to find me, and who's to say life at the refuge would be any better than it is now? Would the food there even be enough to fill my stomach? I doubt it. Thinking this, I felt a sense of comfort again. That night, a heavy snow fell, and the howling wind rattled the windows. From afar, I could faintly hear the cries of animals, startled awake. The first thing I did was check the surveillance. On the monitor, several zombies were wandering outside the yard wall, attracted by something. Though unable to enter, they sniffed around persistently, lingering nearby, and my hair stood on end. Zombies don't just show up without reason. They follow the living, meaning there must be living people nearby, likely aware of this place. Exaggeration aside, I feared the living more than the zombies at this moment. Nearly 2 months had passed since the apocalypse began. In such harsh living conditions, those who survived this long were not kind-hearted. Dealing with me would be as easy for them as squashing an ant. I kept a vigilant eye on the surveillance and soon spotted the uninvited guest. I couldn't make out his face, only discerning from his build that he was a man, wrapped up tight, sitting atop the wall, seemingly unfazed by the dense electric fence beneath him. Was this man not afraid of electricity? After he climbed over the wall, he fell into the yard with a thud and didn't move for a long time. Given that the renovated wall was about 7 or 8 meters high, I suspected he might have died from the fall, but this was a good opportunity. Judging by his ability to climb the wall barehanded, he would clearly overpower me if awake. I stripped off his jacket and thoroughly searched his backpack and pockets. A lighter, a small knife, an axe stained with blood, 2 bundles of rope, a bag of instant noodles, a box of open chocolate, and half a bottle of mineral water were all his belongings. This man was younger than I expected, just over 20, with fair skin and tall stature. He was relatively clean, resembling a scholarly university student, but I didn't let my guard down. Using a pig slaughtering hook from the village, I tied him up tightly to a pillar in the hall, the type of knot that tightens the more one struggles, ensuring he couldn't escape. Then, I dragged a chair over and sat down at a distance, waiting for him to wake up. Lucky crouched by my side. He was a robust local dog, whose bared teeth still looked somewhat fierce, providing both courage and an imposing presence. About half an hour later, the man woke up. At first, he seemed disoriented, not knowing where he was. Once he saw clearly, he looked surprised and said, "Rose." Seeing my surprised expression, he became anxious. "It's Landon, from Squad 3. I remained silent. Landon looked around and then realized, "No wonder, you don't know me yet." I grew more puzzled, yet my face showed nothing. "Did you damage your brain when you fell?" Landon shook his head. "It's normal for you not to trust me. You don't know me yet. My name is Landon. I'm 21, and right now, I'm just a refugee fleeing disaster." The sound of the chainsaw startled Landon. He quickly waved his hands and said, "Just kidding, just kidding." I turned off the chainsaw and looked at him seriously. "We need to build trust, you understand. If you really are a reborn, you should be able to provide more useful information." Landon nodded, a trace of relief visible in his eyes. I know. I'll do my best to help. I just hope for a safe haven." I took a deep breath, pondering his suggestion. Although I didn't trust him, if what he said was true, his knowledge could indeed be helpful to me. "All right, but there are conditions," I said. "You must tell me everything you know about the apocalypse, including how you died and how to avoid making the same mistakes." Landon sighed with relief and nodded in agreement. He began to detail everything he knew, and I listened carefully, hoping to find clues for survival. The saw buzzed and clicked as it spun, repelling any person or animal within a 3 to 5 meter radius. Even Lucky was frightened and hid to the side. With this formidable weapon at my disposal, I felt a bit more confident and asked him what he could do to help. Landon mentioned he used to work with computers and knew a bit about them, enough to consider himself somewhat tech-savvy. "I can help you modify the electrical grid. You've probably been Misled, this grid might stop rabbits, but it's no use against people. No wonder, I thought, he managed to climb over the wall. There's something more urgent, though, Landon said. Can I use your bathroom first? I really can't hold it anymore. Emergencies wait for no one. I understood. So after a moment, I switched off the chainsaw and released the safety catch. As soon as I freed him, Landon moved slightly and then gave a wry smile. Looks like I jinxed it. Indeed, Landon's leg was broken. He had escaped with numerous injuries, but the most severe was to his lower leg, which was swollen and purple, hurting intensely at the slightest touch. I had already mentioned that the newly refurbished wall was 7 to 8 meters high, and he wasn't Superman. It was unlikely he'd fall without injury. Landon stabilized his injured leg and fashioned a pair of crutches from 2 broom handles, he said. In his previous life during the apocalypse, he'd learned to be resourceful. Landon modified the electrical grid, restructured the surveillance setup, and even fixed a broken light in the far corner of the yard. Dragging his injured leg, he went out of his way to prove his worth. I heated up some leftover chicken and potatoes for him, eating with rice. He was moved to tears. I warned him, just to be clear, the resources here are mine. If you need anything, you must get my approval. Landon nodded vigorously. He mentioned that 3 months after the apocalypse, the first wave of zombies, now evolved to have a sense of smell, would attack furiously upon detecting living humans. Our current defenses wouldn't stand a chance. I didn't think he would lie about this. By choosing to stay here, we were in this together. Lying wouldn't benefit him. Landon suggested digging a trench around the factory and filling it with gasoline to mask our scent and serve as a barrier in case zombies attacked. The cold made digging tough. But Landon was confident, so he went out to dig every day, with Lucky keeping watch. The man and his dog worked well together. Landon liked dogs, and it wasn't long before Lucky warmed up to him, happily trotting by his side. I watched, somewhat cynically, thinking the dog really had no principles, but having someone else do the work was a relief. I wouldn't have dared to step out otherwise. Lunch was still chicken bones, this time stewed with radishes. After finishing my portion, I took out meals for Landon and Lucky, who were by the large pit. Landon sat beside the pit, supervising a small robot he had assembled from scraps. Despite looking fragile, it worked efficiently. He downplayed its complexity, saying it was a simple program that could barely make the top 3 in a children's science competition. Yet, I thought, with such skills, he would probably fare well in a shelter too. I walked over with a plate in hand and heard Landon talking to himself while petting the dog's head. Lucky, you better be careful this time. Don't end up in someone's stomach like you did in your last life. Someone ate my dog. I'm not fond of dogs. Getting Lucky was a reluctant decision, and I've always found having a dog to be quite a hassle, but hearing that someone had eaten him really made my blood boil. Who did it? Landon was silent for a moment before saying, Phoebe. That name was unfamiliar to me. I'm quite sure that in my over 20 years of life, I've never met anyone named Phoebe. I asked him if I had ever offended this person. Landon said no. I asked again if this Phoebe was inherently a bad seed, detestable and despised by all. Landon said that wasn't the case either. It was bizarre. There was no reason for her to eat my dog. Lucky was simple-minded and had a hearty appetite, which made him robust, probably weighing around 50 or 60 kilograms. If you were to cook him, it would take 2 large pots. Thinking about it, taking a dog to a shelter wasn't a good decision when people could turn into food if they got hungry enough, let alone a dog. I guess I really had no other choice in my past life. I asked Landon. She ate my dog, and I didn't retaliate. Landon said no. I think he was making it up. I may not consider myself a bad person, but I am definitely one to hold grudges. Before the village was demolished, I worked as a bus ticket officer in a town. For convenience, I shared a rental in the old town. But when the landlord wanted to sell the property and I had just had an appendectomy, I moved back to the village to recover. It wasn't long before rumors spread all over the village that I had been a mistress to a wealthy boss in the city, causing his wife to miscarry and then hiding back in my hometown. The story was detailed and widely circulated. Those who didn't know any better might think they had seen it all with their own eyes. I knew exactly who was spreading these rumors. It was the neighbor from the house to the left. She had come to visit me, claiming it was a visit. She came empty-handed, her eyes gleaming with curiosity, eager to dig up some gossip to talk about behind my back. I was sure it was her because she had a history of this behavior, and it wasn't the first time she'd been caught red-handed. I watched coldly. Once I was well enough, the first thing I did was scoop up a ladle of manure and pour it over her head in the crowded square at noon while she was animatedly gossiping with someone. She nearly lost her mind and called the police immediately to have me arrested. When the police arrived, I threw a tantrum too, saying that as a woman who had never even been in a relationship, my reputation was ruined by these rumors, and I didn't want to live anymore. Shouldn't there be consequences for spreading rumors? I demanded compensation for my emotional distress. In the end, the matter was settled by both sides making concessions, but everyone in the village knew she had been doused in manure by me, and people often jokingly asked her what manure tasted like in a village with little Entertainment, this incident would probably be talked about for over a decade. That's just the kind of person I am, seemingly easygoing, but with a fiery heart and a vengeful nature. My parents passed away early, and if I were weak, I wouldn't be able to protect 3 large courtyards in a mountain. So when Landon said that someone had eaten my dog, I was actually not surprised, thinking there must be another reason unless he was lying. I grabbed Lucky's head and shook it, saying, "Hear that? Be careful of this person, he might eat you." Lucky thought I was playing with him and wagged his tail like a propeller. "Silly dog, eating its meat would probably make you just as dumb." Landon said that 3 months into the apocalypse, the first wave of zombies would appear, having developed a sense of smell and relentlessly tracking the scent of living humans. I asked him if that meant there would be a second or third wave. Landon confirmed, saying in the second wave, the zombies would evolve to be faster, moving so quickly that humans couldn't outrun them without vehicles, leading them to a certain death. I was astounded. It seemed so unfair. Zombies are already tireless, and with added speed, what chance do humans have? So with zombies being so formidable, how do the shelters defend themselves? Surely no one has evolved superpowers, right? Landon laughed. Of course not. Even if humans were to evolve, it wouldn't happen overnight. The little robot was efficient at digging, working quickly and only consuming 1 kilowatt-hour of electricity per hour. Seeing a diesel barrel nearby, I asked him about the risk of gasoline and diesel evaporating. Landon assured me that wouldn't happen, explaining that the method was proven through multiple tests by the shelter. They always carried a small bottle of gasoline when they went out for supplies or to clear battlefields. Paint works too, but once it dries, its effectiveness decreases. That's better than nothing, I thought, taking mental notes. Landon was very dedicated to defense strategies, spending his days digging pits with the robot and nights figuring out how to use what was available to set up another line of defense. I fully supported such mutually beneficial activities. Having experienced a zombie wave, Landon knew just how terrifying it could be. During his stay here, Landon followed the rules closely. The reception desk in the hall, which was originally used for guests, became his sole activity area. When not out digging pits, Landon would tinker with his various inventions on the desk, and at night, he'd simply roll up in a blanket and sleep on the lounge chair. His leg was more severely injured than I had thought. Injuries to muscles and bones take a long time to heal, especially without proper medical facilities here. The medicines I had stockpiled were just everyday over-the-counter drugs from the pharmacy, not very useful beyond reducing pain and inflammation. It would be a pity if such a young man ended up disabled. However, Landon didn't seem to mind. He was lively every day, asked me for an electric wheelchair, and zoomed around the hall, even managing to make a small mechanical dog to keep Lucky company. The mechanical dog was quite crudely made. If it hadn't barked, I wouldn't have recognized what it was supposed to be, but Lucky loved it, crazily wagging his tail and spinning around it. Such a silly dog. I flipped through the calendar. Tomorrow would be New Year's Eve, an undoubtedly important day for the Chinese. Landon, however, became unusually serious, warning that tonight a heavy snow would fall, followed by a zombie wave sweeping through the city. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, snowflakes began fluttering down outside. This is already the 3rd heavy snowfall since the onset of winter this year. I asked Landon how he managed to survive the zombie horde in his past life. Logically, being physically weak and alone, it shouldn't have been easy for him. Landon said he initially stayed at home. Being somewhat of a homebody, he had some food stocked up. Later, he braved a couple of expeditions to other apartments in his complex to gather supplies, which was enough to last him a few months. I only had that pack of frozen dumplings, which I was saving for the New Year's celebration, but just then the zombie horde hit, and I nearly didn't make it through that night. Do you know the big clock tower in B City? I hid there at the top for 3 days, and only survived the cold thanks to my sheer willpower. I know that clock tower. It's a landmark in our second-tier small city, towering over 90 meters. Due to its age, the stairs are damaged and the door is always locked, so parents generally don't let their children play nearby. Indeed, it was a good place to hide. So where did I hide in my past life to survive that dreadful zombie horde? Following the clues Landon gave, I thought hard and figured that the small supermarket he mentioned was probably the convenience store across the street, or more accurately, a small shop. There are many of these in the old town, tucked away in a corner of a winding alley, with a wooden window propped up and tobacco, alcohol, tea, sugar painted on it, covering just a few square meters. I guessed it was this shop because if you turn out of the alley, there's a large gas station nearby. The smell interfered with the zombie's sense of smell, which is how I survived. It was a miraculous stroke of luck, a lifesaver from the heavens. Landon took his defensive preparations seriously. Apart from Digging pits, he also buried many homemade landmines in the outer perimeter. These homemade mines aren't very lethal, but the strong smell of gunpowder can confuse the zombies' sense of smell. Landon joked that at least I'm physically able, and if all else fails, I could escape by car, whereas he, being disabled, would have no choice but to wait for death if he couldn't defend himself. I kindly said, if it really comes to that, considering how much Lucky likes you, I would take you with me. Landon was so touched that he teared up and helped himself to an extra 2 large bowls of dinner. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. The zombie outbreak happened at dawn. Even from the suburbs, you could see the glow of fires in the distance and faintly hear the zombies' roars. Many people in the country have the habit of storing food, and there were surely many survivors in the city 3 months into the apocalypse. But it was uncertain how many would remain after this wave of zombies. Landon stayed up all night, glued to the surveillance screens. I suggested, why don't we take turns? It's not good for a person to stay up all the time. Landon shook his head. It wasn't feasible. If zombies discovered our location, they could gather in large numbers within seconds, and he feared I wouldn't react quickly enough. I argued that even if he spotted them in time, what then? Would he go out and fight them? Landon smiled mysteriously and whispered, look at this. He adjusted the surveillance camera's angle, and suddenly, a row of dense holes appeared on the wall. Landon pressed a key, and an arrow shot out from a hole, firmly embedding itself into the frozen ground, modified from a barbecue skewer. I shouldn't say too much. 1 or 2 arrows are easy, but it's hard to aim for a headshot. Suddenly, I felt like my chainsaw was perhaps unnecessary. Those with technical skills really are impressive, but then again, considering how capable Landon is, could he really have accidentally fallen to his death from upstairs at dawn? Even the remote outskirts were swarming with clusters of zombies. However, judging from their aimless wandering, they seemed unaware that right beneath their noses hid 2 delicious living humans and an equally appetizing live dog. Occasionally, some would stagger closer, only to either have their heads blown off by Landon with a barbecue skewer or be blasted into the air by a landmine. Despite this, the creatures proved remarkably resilient. Even when blown in half, they would continue to struggle, crawling around, leaving a trail of spilled organs and entrails, an utterly horrifying and nauseating sight. I scolded Lucky while tugging on his ears. From now on, you're not allowed to randomly pick up things, or else I'll have to put a muzzle on you. If one day he brought back an arm or a head, I wasn't sure my heart could take it. I went to the cold storage and cooked some frozen dumplings. The 3 of us celebrated the new year in our own way. Landon was very satisfied, claiming it was much better than his previous life. Back then, he was hiding at the top of a bell tower, nearly delirious from the cold, still longing for the taste of the beef dumplings he never got to eat. Honestly, I really admired Landon. After surviving the horrific apocalypse and living a second life, it's natural for anyone to prioritize themselves, or at least their family and friends, but he issued a warning to everyone, became a national fugitive, and nearly lost his life in the process. When I asked if he had any regrets, he said no, because there must be many others like me who, despite being a bit neurotic and prone to wild thoughts, could save their lives when it mattered most. People are easily influenced, he said, even if they end up buying an extra bag of rice or a packet of noodles at the supermarket because of my warning. It wasn't in vain. Besides, doing good deeds brings good karma, and here I am, having met you, right? He laughed smugly, but I felt he was a bit too pleased with himself. Good deeds bring good karma. So what about your broken leg? What kind of karma is that? Landon nonchalantly shook his head. A broken leg doesn't mean it's gone. Even if it was gone, I could replace it with something else. The flesh is weak, but mechanics elevate. I had nothing to say. The next day, the zombie horde peaked, with the undead army passing by outside, and the occasional sound of landmines exploding could be smelled even inside our shelter. I moved stealthily, afraid to make any loud noises. Lucky, sensing my mood, tucked his tail and became as quiet as a mouse. It was no wonder I was so cautious. In the early morning, I peeked down from the small 3rd-floor window and saw the dense mass of zombies swarming below, which gave me goosebumps. Falling into that would mean certain obliteration. Fortunately, Landon's defensive preparations weren't in vain, and we made it safely through the day. By the 3rd day, only a few stragglers occasionally passed by. Having seen the massive horde, even I wasn't intimidated by this small scene anymore. We made it through, right? Landon simply hummed in agreement, saying that after this wave of zombies, the city would be quiet for a while, and he wanted to go home to retrieve his computer. Okay, when do you plan to go? I'll take you there. Landon was surprised. You'll take me? I was even more astonished at him. What? Were you planning to go by wheelchair on your own? No, not that. Landon stammered excitedly. Don't you think it's irrational for me to go back for my computer now. It's not exactly a survival necessity. I said it was fine. Aren't you tech types all like that? A computer is like a second pair of hands. Having the right tools should make things a lot easier. After a month of living together, I knew Landon well enough to see he wasn't acting on a whim. If he needed his computer, it must be because it held significant value, so providing some convenience within my capabilities was the least I could do. After all, when discounts and calculations are applied, I still end up benefiting more from him. By the fourth day, the tide of zombies had receded. Landon said the situation was better than expected, possibly because it was on the outskirts with few people around, so the zombie horde didn't linger, arriving quickly and departing just as fast. I asked him for his family's address in the city, planning which route would allow us to get there smoothly. When the apocalypse struck, many people wanted to flee the city. Countless private cars flooded the streets, clogging them completely, but in the end, no one could leave. Landon mentioned the name of a residential complex. I knew of that complex, composed of Lakeview villas and duplex townhouses, a well-known affluent area in City B. It seems he's not short on money, but that's good. The population density in upscale residences is lower, making the risk relatively smaller. As the moment approached, it was Landon who hesitated. He asked if I really wanted to go with him. Although the zombie tide had passed, there were still risks. I remarked that it was a bit risky, but that computer must contain something very important. Landon agreed. After his rebirth, using his exceptional memory, he compiled and recorded all valuable intelligence, the main cities affected by the 2 zombie outbreaks, the evolutionary traits and weaknesses of the zombies, the selection of sites for human refuge expansion, the experimental reports on targeted biological agents, all were stored on that computer. My respect for him grew. He was just like the scientist character in apocalypse movies, chased by various factions. Landon said, if we use this information as a bargaining chip, we should be able to secure decent treatment for both of us. Oh, and for Lucky, at the refuge. I was startled and looked at him frowning. I never said I wanted to go to the refuge. There's no other choice. Landon's gaze was calm. When the second wave of zombies comes, only those in the refuge will survive. I believed him when he said that. He had no reason to lie. It seemed the second wave of zombies would be far more formidable than this one, enough that Landon had given up struggling. I sighed. All right, tell me, what evolved in the third wave of zombies? Can they fly or burrow through the ground? Landon didn't know. He hadn't lived to see that time, although I don't want to be discouraging. The refuge is directly under military control. They are well equipped, and firearms are the biggest guarantee. That made sense. No matter how powerful the zombies, being blown to bits means they're truly dead, but the thought of going to the base and starving, while also having to watch out for others eyeing my dog, irritated me. Phoebe, why are you always so greedy? Early the next day, I drove Landon towards City B. Landon fiddled with a small drone, which clumsily flew ahead to scout our path. The situation in the suburbs was actually not bad, given the sparse population, but as we got closer to City B, the surrounding environment became increasingly horrifying. Streets were littered with abandoned cars, some burned down to their frames, and bloodstains marked the roads, with human limbs and body parts occasionally visible. I tried to drive without looking around, though I was truly frightened. If I hadn't made the decision to leave decisively at the beginning, I would have been long gone by now. After the zombie tide, the city was much quieter, and we saw hardly any zombies as we followed Landon's directions to the affluent neighborhood. The security guard at the gatehouse bared his teeth and glared menacingly, banging on the glass, a true reflection of the dedication expected in a wealthy community. Landon lived on the second floor. We walked up the stairs. The front door was wide open, and inside, the place was in complete disarray, with furniture overturned and scattered. Most of the window had shattered. Landon took a quick look around and concluded that someone had definitely been here. The cookies and canned goods were gone from the cabinet. Fortunately, it seemed they had only taken food. He packed up his laptop, slung it over his shoulder, and was about to leave when the intercom at the door suddenly crackled to life. First, there was a burst of melodious music, followed by a crisp female voice announcing the news. The announcement mentioned that on February 5th, there would be a helicopter heading to City B for the first rescue operation to search for survivors. Until then, survivors were urged to be cautious and avoid unnecessary outings. Landon, however, pulled me away before we could listen any longer. No one's coming. The rescue operation has been cancelled. I was shocked. Cancelled? Why, today was already February 1st. Perhaps survivors who heard the broadcast were clinging to that slim hope to keep going. You can't be serious, I protested. Landon thought for a moment before explaining. At the time, the rescue team's leader found out his lover was injured. He wasn't In the right state of mind to lead. I was speechless. What kind of reason was that? And even if one person couldn't lead, couldn't someone else step in? On the way back, Landon elaborated on the situation. The rescue team was already en route to City B by helicopter when the leader received news that his beloved had been bitten by a zombie. If he didn't hurry back, he might not even get a last glimpse of her. So he forced the pilot at gunpoint to turn back, but the zombie virus doesn't care whose lover you are. Without a cure, everyone's equal. By the time he got back to the base, his girlfriend had turned into a zombie and had been killed by the soldiers. Knowing he had neglected his duty and overwhelmed by grief at losing his lover, the leader soon took his own life. I listened, deeply moved by the story. In these times, who has it easy? After that incident, we had a long period of peace. Although zombies occasionally wandered nearby, they were few and not a threat as the weather warmed. Landon, with his increasingly nimble legs, began to dig and plant vegetables in the yard. I fashioned a long spear from wood and steel rebar and practiced on an old tire, hoping one day I could precisely pierce a zombie's skull. Knowing that going to the shelter was confirmed, I started to intentionally build my strength. In this apocalyptic world, arguing gets you nowhere. Everything had to be settled with fists. If Phoebe still wanted to eat my dog, I'd give her a couple of punches, but before the issue with the dog was settled, Landon brought home a big, fat tabby cat with round eyes and striped fur. I found it. Isn't it cute? He held up the cat by its paws, his eyes gleaming. No need to worry about mice now, I coldly replied. In these times, if we come across a mouse, we'd skin it and dry it for food storage. I didn't like dogs, and naturally, I didn't care for cats either. They required food and made messes, which was a hassle, but ever since Landon moved in, he had taken over feeding the dog and cleaning up. Undeterred, Landon lifted the cat up again for me to see. It's cute, right? Not at all, I remarked. It's been outside all winter, probably feeding on human flesh. Still think it's cute? Landon said no. He had found it in an abandoned distillery nearby, which had a large storehouse filled with old grain. This cat, being a mouse eater, has indeed drawn quite a number of mice. Lucky also sided with Landon, gazing at me with bright eyes. Outnumbered, I had nothing to say and eventually had to let the cat stay. It seemed more practical to build up strength, in case Phoebe decided she wanted to try the cat as well as my dog. Landon named the stray tabby cat Coco, meaning good fortune, which complemented Lucky nicely. He crafted a cat climbing frame from scrap wood for Coco and built a new doghouse for Lucky, treating them both equally well. On nice days, Landon would take both the cat and the dog outside, grooming the dog first and then the cat, leaving the yard covered in fur, almost like snow. I told him he didn't seem to mind the hassle, spending his days on these tasks, even becoming addicted to them. Landon simply replied, young and with both a cat and a dog, this is my ideal life. The second wave of the undead outbreak occurred in the 9th month of the apocalypse, and as the days drew closer, plans to move to a shelter had to be prioritized. I asked Landon how he planned to convince the people at the shelter without proof, as no one had a reason to believe us otherwise. Landon joked about ancestral dreams. I asked if he was making a cold joke. Landon, smirking, said, it's more believable than reincarnation. The next day, he sent an email to the capital's shelter officials, including a map of a prospective oil field. After the first undead wave, it was discovered that the scent of gasoline effectively impaired the zombies' sense of smell. But gasoline was already a precious resource, vital for everything from construction projects to car travel, not to mention the human bases were in a phase of rapid development and reconstruction, with a huge demand for it. This oil field was indeed a stroke of luck. The communication went smoothly, and 3 days later, a helicopter landed on the open ground in front of our door, and 2 tall, fully armed men stepped out, knocking on the thick alloy gate. The taller man was named Levi, and his slightly shorter companion was his assistant Maxwell. Both were from the Capitol Patrol team, and their main task was to escort me and Landon to the base. We had packed our belongings long ago and didn't hesitate. Landon with the cat and dog in tow, and I with our luggage, boarded the plane. On the helicopter, Maxwell briefly introduced us to the situation at the human shelter. In the 6 months since the last undead wave, all production activities and developmental constructions had been proceeding orderly, and survivors were being gradually brought to the base. According to this progress, in less than 2 years, humans would be able to retake the cities and gain the upper hand. The future looked bright, indeed. If not for the second undead wave, that would have been the outcome. I asked him what the arrangements would be once we reached the shelter and whether personal belongings needed to be surrendered. Maxwell chuckled and said there was no need, except for dangerous or prohibited items. Personal belongings were managed individually as the base was well supplied. Upon arriving at the base that evening, Maxwell led me and Landon to receive Our room keys and identity cards. Every person entering the base received such an ID card, which, apart from registering personal information, also functioned to store points earned through labor, which could then be exchanged for living supplies. Maxwell showed us to our rooms, gave a brief explanation, and left. Landon's room was next to mine, larger, accommodating both the cat and the dog. Landon's job had already been set at the central control hub, where all the base's scientific elites were gathered. As for me, Landon told me I didn't need to work, as his credits were enough to support both of us, plus a cat and a dog, but I felt it was unnecessary. I had my health and strength. I didn't need someone else to provide for me, so, the next morning, I went to the Bulletin Center to look for suitable job opportunities here. Technical jobs were in demand: doctors, nurses, engineers, electricians, mechanics. Having any skill was beneficial. Even those without specific skills could contribute. Through physical labor, farming, gardening, delivering goods, all required manpower. I selected a few similar positions and eventually got hired as a utility worker in the cafeteria's kitchen, doing tasks like washing dishes and cleaning vegetables. This job included 2 meals a day and allowed me to take home leftovers from the kitchen. The cafeteria wasn't far from the Central Control Center. On my first day, I was assigned to deliver boxed lunches to the scientific elites there. I pulled a 4-wheeled cart loaded with neatly packed meals, each containing a meat dish, 2 vegetables, a serving of rice, and a soup, a well-balanced meal. Wearing my work badge, I easily entered the control center building. Following a list provided in advance by the cafeteria manager, I delivered meals floor by floor: 10 meals to the 3rd floor, 15 to the 4th, 7 to the 6th. As I was checking the list, a group of people rushed past me, and someone behind them shouted, "Phoebe, wait for me, you forgot something." I paused immediately. "Phoebe." I turned around, but they had already moved too far away, and the group was too large for me to discern who it was. I barely saw a woman of medium height receiving the item. Was Phoebe working in the control center too? After delivering the meals, I dragged the cart back to the cafeteria. I had missed the dining time, but one perk of working there was that I wouldn't go hungry. Thanks to the leftover food, my shift ended at 4 in the afternoon, and I took the packed leftovers back to the dorm, where I fed Lucky and Coco behind Landon's door. For several days, I hadn't seen Landon. He was busy with work, and so was I. I met quite a few of our neighbors living on the same floor. I only knew Levi by name, but the others had recognizable faces, like the engineering department manager and the head of the materials department. I realized later that the rooms on this floor were reserved for capable people. No wonder the living conditions were so good. My earnings as a kitchen worker weren't high, only 65 credits a day, while a meal cost about 8 to 10 credits. If it weren't for the meals provided by the cafeteria, I couldn't afford to keep Lucky and Coco. Clearly, the other residents also knew I had gotten in by luck. Over those days, only Levi would occasionally greet me in the hallway. The rest seemed to turn their noses up at me, but I didn't really care. With the apocalypse upon us, who could claim their life was more valuable than anyone else's? Levi was the captain of the Vanguard team, a prestigious position. He was also tall and spirited, making him a prominent figure at the base. A pretty girl often came looking for him, possibly his girlfriend, though I overheard from others that she might be the daughter of the head of the supply department. Just from the title of that department, you could tell it was an important position. In that case, Levi was the one reaching higher. The cafeteria provided meals, so I saved most of my credits. However, I didn't keep them. I almost exclusively exchanged them for bags of instant food, compressed biscuits, sausages, milk. I stocked up on whatever I could get and stashed it all under my bed. Landon was busy most of the time, but occasionally he also had days off. He would take Lucky and Coco out for walks, leaving a trail of flying cat and dog fur all over the streets. One day, while Landon and I were having breakfast in the cafeteria, the pretty girl who often sought out Levi suddenly approached us. "I've seen you before. You're Landon from the research department, right? My name is Paige. Nice to meet you." Landon, uninterested, didn't even look up. "Hello, Landon. My father says you're a remarkable person, the smartest in the base. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask." After Paige left, I said to Landon, she wasn't exaggerating. Her father is the head of the supplies department. Landon shook his head. It's best to avoid getting involved with her. I was all ears, eager for more details. Landon explained that in his past life, after the second zombie wave, a small breach occurred in the base. Paige and about a dozen others were trapped in the overrun zone, and Levi was ordered to lead a rescue team. If they had retreated in time, there could have been no casualties, but Paige insisted on retrieving her family portrait. Between the rescue team and those trapped, there were 29 people. Only Paige and Levi survived. Landon Scoffed, and she still dared to bring that photo to me for restoration, thinking everyone should revolve around her, but in reality, everyone did revolve around her. Before the apocalypse, Paige was a privileged daughter of a high-ranking official. After the apocalypse, her father became the head of the supplies department at the Capitol base. She always had it easy. Landon mentioned that there were many such troublesome incidents. Anyone close to Paige ended up suffering because of her. Suddenly, I remembered something about Phoebe. Sharing the same last name as them, could they be related? Landon confirmed they were. Phoebe was Paige's father's illegitimate daughter, and the two didn't get along. Paige thought Phoebe had impure blood, and Phoebe thought Paige was just a pretty but brainless vase. I was impressed. What a drama. Truly remarkable. The clash of the real and the faux heiresses. Their drama was fully loaded. A few days later, I witnessed the war between the two heiresses myself. That day, Phoebe and Paige appeared in the cafeteria at the same time, sitting face to face, with a palpable tension in the air that could be felt from afar. Holding a bag of chives, I sat at a distance where I could clearly hear them, and began sorting through the greens. They were arguing. Paige sneered. Being liked starts with being pretty. Don't you ever look in the mirror? Phoebe, who was average-looking and barely met the threshold of being called delicate, seemed plain next to the naturally beautiful Paige. It was hard for anyone to guess they were related by blood. Phoebe calmly retorted, there are plenty of beautiful people, but not everyone has brains. There are new 18-year-old women every year. How long can you stay beautiful? No wonder she was proud. Phoebe worked in the control center, where only the talented could enter. Paige then said, with your looks, standing beside Levi would only embarrass him. Phoebe didn't back down. Do you think Levi would like a pretty but brainless vase? He needs someone who can stand by his side as an equal. Their verbal sparring was truly uninteresting, revolving around the same 2 points, Paige calling Phoebe ugly, Phoebe mocking Paige's intelligence. The lives of these heiresses were fascinating, while others worried about surviving. These two were fighting over a man. Comfort breeds desire. That's the principle at work. As I sorted the chives, I listened with interest, but suddenly the fire spread to me. Paige suddenly strode over, grabbed me by the arm. You're Rose, right? Which one of us do you think Levi would prefer? She asked. I almost laughed. What a childish question. I'm not Levi. He wouldn't take my word for it anyway, so what's the use of my opinion? I shook my head. I don't know. You should probably ask Levi himself. Paige seemed infuriated by my response, and repeated each word distinctly. If you were Levi, who would you choose among us? Honestly, I had no idea. My interactions with Levi were limited to just a couple of greetings. How would I know his preferences? If I really were Levi, I'd probably choose Paige's father. After all, he's the head of the supply department. That position has its perks, but I didn't want to completely fall out with these girls, so I opted for a diplomatic answer. If I were a man, I'd probably prefer someone kind and gentle. Kindness and gentleness have nothing to do with intelligence or looks, so no one gets offended. After this conversation, the competition for Levi's attention between the two heiresses intensified. They could often be seen in the dormitory corridors, their interactions as regular as clockwork. I enjoyed watching the drama unfold. As long as Paige didn't trouble me and Phoebe didn't eat my dog, I was fine. However, Levi seemed to have no clear preference, simply accepting all their advances. Today, enjoying chicken soup prepared by Phoebe. Tomorrow, accepting fruits from Paige. You have to understand, in these end times, even though our base was well supplied, not everyone had access to freshly made chicken soup or fresh fruits. These were luxury items that couldn't be bought with regular credits. I finished my shift in the cafeteria after 9 at night, and Landon was already waiting in the dorm. He spoke in a low voice, saying the monitoring equipment had detected some movement. It looked like it would happen in the next couple of days. The most likely breach would be in the southern sector. Though defenses have been strengthened, no one can guarantee they'll hold. If they fail, we might face a shortage of supplies. I lifted my mattress to show him the food supplies I had stashed away. Mostly, they consisted of compressed biscuits, instant noodles, canned goods, and sausages, all acquired with my credits. Besides that, I had fortified my room door with a sheet of iron, and my trusty spear was hidden beside my bed. I was always prepared for the worst. Landon handed me a key. There's a bomb shelter behind the main building. You don't have clearance, but you can use this key to get in. If things really get out of control, hide in there. Okay. The next morning, I still went to work, but as soon as I stepped into the cafeteria, I sensed something was off. Rumors, regardless of the era, were always rampant. For instance, a group was huddled together discussing how a vanguard squad had encountered zombies during a clearing operation the previous day, nearly getting wiped out. How could they get wiped out? Couldn't they just run away? I heard these zombies can run too. Oh well, I only caught bits and pieces of the story. Who knows what's really true? The zombie horde was indeed coming. I took a couple of days off and exchanged all the remaining credits in my account. I prioritized food, but I wasn't picky about the rest. Paper towels, fruit knives, alcohol, toothbrushes, anything was better than mere numbers in my account. Landon hadn't come back yet. I moved Lucky and Coco into my room and locked the door from the inside in. The wee hours of the morning, the alarm at the base went off. The broadcast announced that there was a breach in the wall, and there might be zombies roaming inside the base. All residents were advised not to open their doors unnecessarily and certainly not to go outside. I closed the curtains and sat quietly, holding a dog and a cat. In the early hours, I heard Levi's voice, his hurried footsteps echoing clearly in the hallway. "Okay, I'll be right there. Hang in there." At that time, I was hiding in my room, eating a can of fish, one for the cat, one for the dog, and one for me. After Levi left, the influential big shots also became restless, and soon more noise could be heard along the hallway. "Lincoln, drive the car downstairs, pick me up, and let's hide in the east side of the city. Do you have any food? Bring everything." The east side was the military's command center, definitely safer and more secure. But not everyone had the privilege to enter. I certainly couldn't. The radio station broadcasted updates every 2 hours with precise information on which areas had fallen and which residents needed to evacuate. I spent a long time marking up a map, planning 2 relatively safe routes. The apartment was about a kilometer straight line distance from the control center. Under good conditions, it would take about 20 minutes if I unfortunately encountered zombies face to face. There was a place along the way where I could temporarily hide, a high-end apartment building under renovation with strict access control, requiring a permission card for entry. I had once delivered food to the construction workers and happened to have a temporary access card. 2 days later, I heard a familiar location mentioned in the broadcast. Suspected infected individuals have entered apartment buildings 2 and 5 in X district. Reinforcement troops are on their way. Everyone please lock your doors and protect yourselves. Unluckily, I lived in building 5, apart from the neighbors on the same floor who had already evacuated. There were still quite a few people in the building. The combat capability of the evolved zombies was off the charts, and if an infected individual turned, the consequences would be severe. I put on my backpack, placed the cat in a sling bag on my chest, picked up a heavy spear, and sprayed some gasoline on myself. "Let's go, Lucky." Lucky whimpered softly and wagged its tail, following closely behind. It also carried a bag with cat food, dog food, and a few cans of fish, most of the residents on this floor had moved out, and the corridor was eerily quiet with several doors wide open and in disarray. The stairwell lights seemed to be broken, flickering on and off, with Lucky sticking close to my feet, panting. The atmosphere of panic was spreading. The streets were very quiet, and hardly any living person could be seen. I tried to keep a low profile, not wanting to attract the attention of those creatures. Unfortunately, ahead on the essential path, a person in an orange t-shirt was squatting by a trash can, stuffing something into his mouth. Hearing the noise, he turned his face towards me, baring his teeth and growling, "Lucky, run." With a change in plans, I ran with Lucky towards the high-end apartment building. The evolved zombies were fast, but this one seemed to be in the process of turning and wasn't as agile yet, so I managed to outrun it. I swiped the card to enter, locked the main door behind me. I grabbed a can of gasoline and sprayed it wildly on the door, watching the zombie lose its target due to the smell and eventually stagger away. I finally breathed a sigh of relief. Then I realized that there were already people in this unfinished building. 2 men and a woman stood nearby, cautiously looking over. They were watching me as I watched them. One of the men was of average height, overweight, and looked vaguely familiar, like some department head. The other, a skinny short man, was a driver. I'd seen him throwing his weight around in the cafeteria, using his boss's name to eat and drink for free, very arrogantly. And the woman, I knew her too. She was Paige, the only daughter of the head of the supply department. She looked at me suspiciously. "How did you get in?" I knew what she meant. Ordinary people wouldn't have access cards to this upscale apartment building, but I just happened to have one, not wanting any conflict. I lied. "It's Landon's. I borrowed it." "I thought so. Where is Landon?" "He's at the control center." Although the apartment building had 4 floors, most were either unfinished or had no utilities. The only 2 usable rooms on the first floor were already occupied by Paige and the 2 men, and clearly, they were not welcoming to me. I didn't plan to cozy up to them anyway and turned to the security duty restroom behind the lobby. The restroom was small, with just a bed and a table. I took out some food and water from my backpack, fed the cat and dog, ate some myself, then closed my eyes, locked the door, and rested. But just after dozing off for a bit, Lucky suddenly stepped on my face with his paw and made a whining noise. Lucky was usually sensible, not bothering me while I slept without reason. I got up and walked out. Paige was standing in the hall talking to a middle-aged man. Clearly, she had let him in through the access control. Paige asked urgently, "Uncle, have you seen my dad?" The man said, "Paige's father has been safely relocated and is now secure." Paige was relieved. "That's good. I knew he would come for me." I stepped forward, grabbed Paige, and demanded, "Who allowed you to let people in randomly?" Paige was taken aback, then angrily shook me off. This isn't your house. What right do you have to interfere? I patiently pointed out. Don't you see the wounds on him? It was summer, and everyone was in short sleeves. Wounds couldn't be hidden. The bright bite marks and bloodstains on the man's arm were impossible to miss unless you were blind. Paige got even angrier. It was a dog bite. It's all because of you people who keep dogs. Phoebe was right. Paige really had no sense. How many people in the base kept dogs? Everyone was worried about whether they could fill their stomachs. The overweight and skinny men also came out upon hearing the noise, but they were clearly smarter than Paige. Standing far back and watching, I said, "Fine, then you take him in. What will you do if there's not enough room?" Paige was stunned, clearly not having thought about this. Then she looked at the two men. Their heads shook like rattles. Anyone with a brain wouldn't joke about their own safety. I said to Paige, "Looks like he'll have to sleep in your room then." Paige was astonished. "But I'm a girl," I replied. "If you can't distinguish between humans and zombies, don't be so strict about gender. Besides, you're the only one here who knows him, so who else should I go with if not you?" Paige was about to argue when Uncle suddenly clutched his arm and collapsed to the ground. Convulsing in pain, she panicked and quickly bent down to help him, asking, "Uncle, what's wrong with you? What else?" "He's turning into a zombie. It's been over half a year since the apocalypse started, and this rich girl still hasn't adapted. I'm really at a loss." The virus acted quickly, and in no time, Uncle's eyes rolled back as he completely turned into a zombie, snarling and lunging at Paige. I stepped in first, spear in one hand, and pierced through his skull. Zombie blood splattered all over the wall. Paige screamed at the top of her lungs. I looked on coldly. "Go ahead, scream louder. Draw all the zombies here, and let's see if anyone survives." Two men, one fat and one thin, rushed over and covered Paige's mouth. Paige still harbored a sliver of hope. Tremblingly she asked, "Is this rabies acting up?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Do you not see the difference between the dogs running outside and the zombies? Those two holes on your face wouldn't even pass for ornaments. You really are stupid beyond belief." Paige, likely never having been confronted like this, was rendered speechless, tears flickering in her eyes. The portly leader couldn't stand it anymore and stepped in to mediate. "Young lady, don't be so hot-tempered. Paige didn't do it on purpose, and look, no harm done. Let's be forgiving where we can." I looked at him curiously. "You're quite interesting, staying so far away just a moment ago, and now coming so close." The fat man pompously lectured me. "Is that how you talk to your elders? Which elder are you? Have I eaten a grain of rice from your home, or drunk a sip of your water? It's not impossible to get closer. I can save a spot for you in the pigsty. Come the end of the year, you'd fetch a good price." Arguing like this is something I'm quite experienced in the village. 10 quarrelsome women together couldn't match me, let alone these delicate city folk. The fat man trembled with anger, took a couple of steps forward, and raised his arm. Lucky, my dog, bristled, baring his teeth and growling menacingly. I added fuel to the fire. "My dog isn't very patient. If someone provokes him and gets bitten, there's no rabies vaccine available now. If you die, it's what you deserve." The fat man hesitated indeed. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. These people are all the same, none worth mentioning. After throwing the zombie out, the people in the room still split into two groups. I sat on one side with Lucky, and the two men sat around Paige on the other side. After a while, they began to divide up the food, naturally leaving none for me, but I didn't need it. The food I brought was enough for a while. As for what they were sharing, it must have been brought by Paige, who had a suitcase full of food. For one person, it might last a few days, but for three, I could only wish her luck. Perhaps my spear through the zombie's skull had an effect, as those three didn't trouble me further. The next morning, 2 more people entered the apartment. No need for someone else to open the door. They used a card. They were familiar faces I knew. Phoebe and Levi. Levi injured his leg. It wasn't serious, but it was enough to limit his mobility, forcing him to temporarily withdraw from the front lines. Phoebe, upon receiving the news, drove through a risky area to pick him up. Unfortunately, their luck wasn't great. Their car broke down halfway, and they had no choice but to take shelter in an apartment. They had left in such a rush that all they had were a few packs of instant noodles. I opened my backpack, handed over some anti-inflammatory medicine, and clean bandages. Medicine was in short supply these days, and Levi was visibly surprised, while Phoebe expressed profound gratitude, insisting that I shouldn't hesitate to ask if I needed anything in return. Of course, my intentions weren't entirely altruistic, nor was I swayed by Levi's charm. Levi was a robust young man, a soldier who had spent years on the front lines. Even injured, he was not someone I could contend with. If it came to standing together with them in battle, I would be at a disadvantage. However, I soon realized that even without trying to curry favor, these 5 wouldn't easily band together. Even amidst a zombie siege, Paige and Phoebe were still vying for Levi's attention. Paige boldly invited Levi to share a suite with her, using the excuse that it was more spacious. Naturally, Phoebe wouldn't agree, leading to a fierce exchange of words between them, with neither willing to back down. In the end, Levi dragged a sofa behind the service counter in the lobby, declaring it his sleeping spot so he could be the first line of defense should zombies break in. It was a clever excuse that left no room for argument. Paige, hopeful yet persistent, circled around the service counter. Levi, are you in pain? Levi, are you hungry? Levi, do you want to rest? Phoebe spoke less, but she was equally assertive, changing Levi's bandages and cleaning his blood-stained wrist guard with gentle care and empathy. Despite the affection shown by both women, Levi responded as he always did, welcoming all advances. Paige brought food, 3 bags of bread, 2 bags of cookies, and a box of milk. Such supplies could last her 2 or 3 days if she rationed them, but for a young man like Levi, they would barely satisfy his hunger. If Paige's father knew how his daughter was spending resources, he'd probably be livid. I hid in a small room, taking stock of my belongings. With careful rationing, I could last about 7 to 8 days. Since Levi moved in, everyone seemed to rally around him as a natural leader. This window is cracked. It needs to be sealed, Levi observed. He looked at me. Rose, you have a can of paint. Cover the glass with it. Hearing him call me that made me twitch. We weren't that close still. I would comply with his directives as much as possible. I didn't want to create conflict, especially when I was at a disadvantage. As the days passed, Paige's food lasted only 3 days to show goodwill. I took out the last bit of food from my backpack, distributing 2 small packs of compressed biscuits and a piece of chocolate to everyone. But the bad news didn't stop there. The radio reported that a large number of infected were flooding into the city. The area nearby is now a high-risk zone, and it is recommended that those who can evacuate do so promptly. Evacuation requires a vehicle. But Levi's car was nearly wrecked on arrival, and no other vehicles are available nearby. The harsh realities and lack of food have made everyone increasingly irritable. In the past 2 days, Paige and Phoebe have argued 3 times. The heavy-set leader clashed with Levi once, and the skinny driver, suspecting I had hoarded food, tried to approach my cabin. Lucky darted out, gripped the hem of his shirt in his teeth, and growled, refusing to let go. The skinny driver screamed in panic, drawing everyone's attention this way. He managed to shake off Lucky and scrambled away. Levi frowned and asked, "Does this dog bite?" I pulled Lucky back calmly and replied, "No, he's just playing around. He's a local breed, very territorial, not to be teased." I couldn't overpower Levi, and he had a gun. Levi was a skilled marksman. Just the other day, he had taken down several zombies wandering nearby from a 3rd-floor window, which made Paige scream in admiration like a little fangirl. With Levi's wound nearly healed, he called a small meeting. He declared that sitting ducks was not an option. We had to either go out for food or relocate as a group. The commissary isn't far from here, and its warehouse has a lot of rice and flour. However, the commissary's defenses were inadequate to serve as a shelter, so we needed to send someone out to bring back food. Paige was the first to speak up. "Let Rose do it. She's strong and great at fighting zombies." Both the heavy-set and skinny men nodded in agreement. Levi looked at me and asked, "You fought zombies?" I gave a vague answer, saying I used to work out, so I had better physical strength than most, though in reality, my strength came from moving stones and punching tires in the yard. Levi divided everyone into groups, Paige and the skinny driver, me and the heavy-set leader, and he and Phoebe. Paige immediately protested, saying she was scared and not fast enough. She asked if she could avoid going, but Levi insisted that, for fairness, everyone must participate. So Paige declared that if she had to go, she wanted to be in Levi's group. I mentioned that I was used to acting alone and could go by myself. Thus, it was decided, Levi and Paige as one team, the heavy-set and skinny men as another, and me on my own. We drew lots to decide who would go first. I was unlucky and drew the first lot. The heavy-set and skinny men felt lucky. I ignored them and started packing my things. Actually, the order didn't matter to me. Unless something unexpected happened, I wouldn't be returning to this apartment. In a situation without food, it's not surprising what people might do. I didn't fatten up Lucky just to have him end up feeding someone else. The next morning, I left the apartment early, leading the dog and carrying the cat. The streets were deserted, occasionally showing large patches of darkened blood and scattered human bones, a grim reminder of past tragedies. I had no intention of heading to the commissary. As a major storage facility, it would surely attract many, and the risks were equally high. I wanted to find Landon, but I didn't know where he was. Phoebe mentioned that the members at the control center had moved early to the safest eastern district, but she had decided to turn back to fetch Levi after hearing of his injury, thus not evacuating with the main group. When I asked her if she had seen Landon, she was quite upfront about it, mentioning that it was too chaotic at the time with too many people around to notice who was missing or added. So now, I really don't know where to go. Perhaps I should first head to the underground bunker to ensure safety before considering anything else. As I cautiously observed my surroundings and walked along the wall, suddenly, small pebbles were thrown down from above. Looking up, I saw Landon poking his head out of a window. He flashed a big grin and said, "Why are you just arriving? I've been waiting for you for a long time." I was puzzled. "Landon, what are you doing here? I know this place well. It's a 2-story concrete building which also serves as the storeroom for the cafeteria. I work in the cafeteria, where handling the food carts and tidying up is part of my daily routine. I've run into Landon a few times when he came to eat, and he would help out. When I went up, Landon was sitting on a mat with a laptop, surrounded by some scattered food. I asked him, "Didn't the control center initiate a full evacuation already? Why haven't you left?" Landon replied, "I was waiting for you. What if you went to the control center and found it empty? You would probably hate me." I couldn't believe what he was saying. I'm not that temperamental. Seeing my disbelief, Landon patted his leg and gave a wry smile. I didn't get out. The car flipped, and I broke my leg, so I couldn't leave even if I wanted to. I sat down on the ground, tossing my backpack aside. I hid in that newly built apartment building for a few days. "I know," Landon said. "Lucky's collar has a tracker." "A tracker?" I stared at him. "Since when did you install that?" Landon looked innocent. "I installed it a long time ago. I told you about it. Try to remember." I thought hard, and it seemed like he did mention it. Well, if it was installed, it was for Lucky's safety. I grabbed my backpack, rummaged through it, and tossed him the remaining bandages and anti-inflammatory drugs. "This is all I have left. Make do with these." Landon checked the contents of the bag and frowned. "This amount. Are you injured?" "No, Levi used them." Landon was surprised. "Levi, he's here too, not just him." "There are quite a few people. I counted on my fingers. Paige, Phoebe, and some leader from somewhere, and a driver who was showing off last time in the cafeteria. You might have seen him. It's enough for a drama." Landon's expression grew serious, and after a while, he said, "You shouldn't get too close to Levi." I looked down, picking cat hairs off my clothes. "I know. I wasn't planning to. I don't know much about Levi, and I don't like his personality, but for Landon to say something like this, there's only one possibility: that I have suffered because of Levi. If not in this life, then in a past one. Usually, I don't ask too much about past lives involving Landon unless it's about crucial, life-dependent information. He would speak if he wanted to, and remain quiet if he didn't. But now, I leaned forward. "How did I live in my past life? What do you know? Tell me." Landon couldn't help but laugh. "What? You really trust me completely now?" I admit, I am a rather suspicious person. Just like with Landon, he claimed to be reincarnated, yet he couldn't provide any tangible evidence, so I could only half believe him at this point. Though dwelling on such details seemed meaningless. From what he said, it appeared I hadn't been very smart in my past life, often getting duped by others. "Go on, I'll believe you." In this story, I met Landon on a search and rescue flight from City B to the capital. At the time, Landon was in a terrible state, chased by zombies, eating only once every 3 days, with his clothes sticking to his back, and all the spare food on the rescue plane had just run out. I gave him a packet of instant noodles. He then deemed me a kind person worthy of friendship. Landon always liked dogs, and later, using petting dogs as an excuse, we gradually became acquainted. I was assigned to the city entrance checkpoint. It involved checking returning search and rescue teams or soldiers for injuries, whether they were bitten or scratched by zombies, or had other types of injuries, and then making appropriate arrangements. It wasn't a great job. It was quite risky, with frequent attacks by infected individuals, and not a few lost their lives. I felt this plot direction was generally logical, but then wondered how a low-level person like me got entangled with Phoebe. Landon explained that for a while, Levi was frequently dispatched, sometimes several times a day, each time passing through the checkpoint I was responsible for. Then Paige approached me, offering to take over my shift. Being a highborn lady not accustomed to the hardships of common folk, I couldn't just act recklessly. If anything happened to her on my watch, I couldn't bear the responsibility, so I refused. That made Paige hate me. She could easily make my life miserable with just a word, and soon I found myself assigned to duty during meal times. Arriving at the canteen to find nothing left to eat, it became common to miss 2 meals a day. Eventually, Paige also took up a post at the checkpoint. Now, not only did I have to work, but I also had to serve her, effectively doubling my workload. It was an undeserved disaster. Then Phoebe couldn't sit idly by. She started getting chummy with me and even sent over a box of canned goods, which at the time was quite a valuable item. But I wasn't foolish. Nothing like canned goods comes for free, and I certainly didn't want to get caught up in a melodramatic love triangle. So, stumbling along, we reached the second wave of the zombie outbreak. The zombies evolved again, breached the base, and many people died, including me, after my death. Landon took Lucky, my dog, and kept him in his yard. One day, when he returned home from work, he discovered Lucky was missing. Following the tracker, he found a military tent area with a large boiling pot, and nearby, a freshly skinned dog hide. Lucky was dead. Phoebe's doing. Later on, Landon was sent outside the base and died during a clearing operation. After hearing this, I was silent for a long time, then said, "I'm dead, and Paige and Phoebe are both alive." Landon said yes. I felt there was something fishy about this. First off, in terms of strength and physique, I was certainly no less capable than Paige and Phoebe, so why did I die while they survived? And frankly, someone as talented as Landon shouldn't have been sent out. He would have been far more valuable at the control center. Several other things must have happened during that time. That night, I had a dream. It was a long, bizarre, yet vivid dream. I was in the guardhouse, and there was a person lying on the floor, or rather, it was a zombie in the midst of transformation due to a virus infection. Part of my daily job was to check if newcomers were infected. For safety, there was always an emergency exit at the checkpoint so that staff could escape if something went wrong. But at that moment, the door was locked from the outside. I desperately pounded on the door, while Phoebe watched indifferently from behind the glass. The scene shifted. Landon was confronting Phoebe. Phoebe said, "Levi is hurt. He needs to recover. And we're short on supplies. People are more important than animals." Landon sneered. "If he needs to recover, why don't you cook yourself? Stealing someone else's dog, that's really low." He kicked over an iron pot, spilling hot soup everywhere. Then, 4 or 5 strong men rushed at him, pinning him down and beating him up amidst the flying dust. Phoebe's face bore a smile, sinister and glaring. I cycled through these 2 dreams all night until I woke up the next day with a splitting headache. Although it was just a dream, it felt too real, as if I had lived through it myself, enduring a whole lifetime of experiences. The sun was already high when I woke up. Landon was feeding the cats and dogs, leaving fur all over the place. I turned to look at him. "Landon, did you get beaten up?" "What? You kicked over the pot with dog meat, and then you got beaten up, right?" Landon looked surprised. "Yes, but how did you know?" "I dreamt about it." I rubbed my face and took a deep breath. "Weird, I haven't been reborn, so how could I know?" But it all made sense. I guessed that Phoebe was behind Landon's eventual unclear death outside. Given her way of dealing with conflicts, she wouldn't leave Landon alive. The number of zombies outside the window had clearly increased from the day before. There were at least a dozen wandering below. Landon cuddled a dog. "The infection is spreading. This part of the city has fallen. And if there's a lockdown and concentrated fire, we won't be able to get out. We need to leave this place." I supported Landon's decision unconditionally. Firstly, we were a team, and secondly, Landon was smart. But speaking of leaving, we first needed a vehicle. Not only did we lack a vehicle, but Landon also had a disability, and with pets to care for, evacuation was easier said than done. Landon patted his laptop confidently. "I'm important. Someone will come for us." I had nothing to say. The next evening, a car sped from a distance, charging directly into a horde of zombies. A man jumped from the car, holding a knife in one hand and a gun in the other, slashing and shooting his way through the zombies. He moved with agility, quickly scaling the wall to the 3rd floor to stand before us. "My name is Lawson. Are you Landon?" His question caught me off guard. Landon Lawson. It sounded as though they could be brothers, but it turned out to be a mere coincidence. Lawson, a former Special Forces operative, had always been stationed close to the base commander. This time, he was specifically sent to find Landon and ensure his safe return. The 2 of us, along with a cat and a dog, smoothly got into the pickup truck and headed eastward out of the city. Lawson was a man of few words, exuding a bandit-like aura. However, in times like these, his presence and capabilities, both in combat and appearance, felt reassuringly dependable. Far more intimidating than any zombie. We hadn't driven far when our path was blocked. Peering from the back seat, I recognized familiar faces. It was Levi and the Page sisters, along with a skinny driver. Lawson seemed to know Levi. After clearing the surrounding zombies with gunfire, he stopped the truck and invited them aboard. With 2 rows of seats in the truck, and space in the back for additional passengers, everyone except Levi desperately tried to squeeze into a seat. Page seized the opportunity and swiftly jumped in. The skinny driver, unable to get in, became anxious. "Kick the dog out. Why should it occupy a seat?" he complained, but didn't dare to physically remove the dog, knowing well that Lucky might bite. Lawson, sparing with words, settled the matter with a simple first come, first served. Phoebe and the skinny driver had no choice but to sit outside. As we continued driving, Paige stared at me, a mix of surprise and defiance in her eyes. If it were before, I would have ignored it, but after that dream, I found her particularly detestable. Although Paige wasn't directly responsible for My death, she was definitely linked to the beginning of the whole incident. Paige leaned forward to talk to Landon. Landon, why didn't you relocate earlier? Have you seen my dad? I mentioned to you last time that it's too hard in the control center, and the risk is high. You should go to the supply department. It's much easier there, no need to work hard, and there are plenty of supplies, once things settle down here. I'll talk to my dad and ask him to transfer you over. Thank you for the consideration, but no need, Landon replied nonchalantly, then leaned his head back on the seat, closing his eyes to sleep. During the journey, we encountered two small groups of zombies, one with about 10 and another with more than 20, all clawing and nearly jumping onto the vehicle, but Lawson was experienced, swerving and shaking them off quickly. However, those outside suffered. Both the skinny driver and Phoebe looked pale, their faces and lips ashen. I didn't ask where the chubby leader had gone, but his end probably wasn't very pleasant. With his physique, movement must have been difficult, and being left behind in a critical moment seemed almost expected. After driving for 5 hours, we finally reached the military base in the eastern part of the city, which is currently considered the safest place in the capital, but unexpectedly, a high wall had been erected on what was once open ground, with many soldiers stationed above, guns at the ready, while below, many people were in turmoil, crying, cursing, throwing tantrums. Everyone's actions signaled that the situation was spiraling out of control. Lawson's expression changed. He pushed through to the front to read a notice posted on the wall, then returned with explosive news. According to biologists' calculations, the third wave of the zombie outbreak would start sooner than expected. The virus was no longer solely transmitted through saliva and bites. It had evolved to be latent, meaning infected humans wouldn't know they were carriers until one day they suddenly turned into zombies. The risk was imaginable, and the military immediately decided to seal off the eastern city protection zone, not accepting any outsiders for the time being. For the survivors who had struggled to get here from other bases, this was a bolt from the blue. The safe zone was right across from them, yet inaccessible. Paige immediately broke down. She went to the guard post, crying and saying her father was the head of the supply department, but with the military fully in charge, no department head had any sway. Phoebe and Levi also tried to contact people inside, but both looked visibly upset, clearly not receiving positive feedback. Lawson left too. I wasn't surprised. After all, his only responsibility was to bring Landon back from the risk zone. Given the current circumstances, which had exceeded expectations, he had no need to take unnecessary risks, let alone care for others, especially us who couldn't help at all. I found a corner with an abandoned oil drum and gathered some debris to create a barely sufficient hiding spot. In such chaos, causing a fuss was useless. All we could do was wait, and in this wait, the most important thing was to survive. An injured man, a woman, a stray dog, a stray cat. We were clearly a group at a disadvantage. The sky had completely darkened, and people's anger had not yet subsided. The military opened a small gap to distribute boxed meals. Each person can receive a limited amount with their identity card. My card entitles me to one portion, and Landon's card gets two thanks to the special attention the base pays to talent. It's unclear when the eastern city will open up. For now, food isn't an immediate concern, but we've run out of medicine, and bandages must be used sparingly. Shortly after, Paige joined me. Her eyes were red, and her hair was a bit messy, clearly having cried. However, this lady still maintained her pride when facing me. She handed me her card and asked me to queue up to get her a boxed meal. I looked at her, puzzled, and retorted, "What makes you think I should line up for you?" Paige, taken aback and flushed with embarrassment, then said, "I'll give you points. How many do you want?" In the past, I might have considered it, but now, points are useless. I ignored her and continued eating my boxed meal. Though the rice was somewhat cold and the dish was bland, food was precious, and filling the stomach was crucial. Furious, Paige reached out to knock my boxed meal away, but I dodged and slapped her delicate face in return. I didn't hold back, and the slap sent Paige stumbling back, falling clumsily to the ground. Unfortunately, in such chaotic scenes, no one would pity her beauty, nor would anyone side with her, hoping to curry favor with Paige's father. She was left isolated. Wake up, little princess, it's the end of the world. Zombies are eating people. In such places, it's unsafe to sleep soundly. Landon and I discussed taking turns to keep watch, looking out for each other. Desperate times can drive people to do anything, and just as I expected, the night was not peaceful. Thankfully, the military patrolled, preventing any severe incidents. In the morning, I went to get another boxed meal and surprisingly saw Paige in the line. It seemed she either learned her lesson or was simply too hungry. Two large tents were temporarily set up in the square, containing several large barrels serving as toilets for men and women. Coming out of the toilet, Paige blocked my path. Aside from the slap mark I left on her face yesterday, she looked fairly healthy. Paige crossed her arms, her expression arrogant and commanding. Don't be smug, Lawson will teach you a lesson soon. It seems she's clinging to Lawson now. I couldn't be bothered with her and walked towards the oil drums to catch some more sleep. Lawson might be tempted by beauty, but he's no fool, and getting angry over a pretty face is simply idiotic. Landon was fiddling with his computer. I sat down next to him and patted Lucky's head. Is the news about the third wave of the zombie horde and the virus spreading through the air reliable? Landon shook his head. It's fake, just a ridiculous farce caused by the upper management for personal gain. We can only wait for them to clean up their act. I nodded and didn't ask further. The number of people in the square kept increasing, with new arrivals from other parts of the base experiencing the same cycle of hope and disappointment we did. Then, despair set in. As more people gathered, food supplies became strained. Meals from boxed lunches went from 3 times a day to just 2, and then eventually down to 1. During this period, there was even a riot caused by those infected with the virus, attacking others. Although the soldiers managed to eliminate the zombies quickly, a sense of unease and oppression had already spread throughout the square. We still had some food we brought with us, so hunger wasn't an immediate issue. However, even Landon couldn't predict how long this dire situation would last. In his previous life, he hadn't survived the third wave of zombies. I saw Phoebe again. She was with Levi, wearing a badge around her neck, seemingly in charge of some work management role. Although she couldn't enter the eastern part of the city, her conditions were much better than those of ordinary people. Paige saw them too. She was ecstatic, rushing into Levi's arms, sharing her grievances and fears, pleading with him to take her along. Then she was struck by Lawson. A special forces slap is no ordinary slap. Paige bled from her mouth and nose and fainted on the spot. Lawson was a man with a fierce presence. I was right about judging people. However, Levi was ruthless. He didn't bother with Paige, exchanging only a few cold words with Lawson before leaving. I stood far away, watching the drama unfold. Suddenly, Landon spoke up. Paige's father is dead. It then made sense to me. With her father dead, Paige, being merely a decorative piece, had her value greatly diminished. Phoebe, at least, was smart. Levi knew how to play both sides. That same night, a tall, thin young man came to us, showing his identification and employment proof. He said the military was restarting virus research and that Landon qualified for an exception to enter the city. Landon negotiated for 2 entry spots, insisting that he take his pets along first for care. The man agreed readily, giving us 2 transit cards immediately and taking Lucky and Coco away. I was initially worried, but Landon reassured me, knowing the man from his past life as a neighbor with good character. And importantly, he was a vegetarian. This was really the best solution, as now we could only get 1 boxed meal per day, and many were desperately hungry. I held the cards in my hand, looking at them over and over. 2 transit cards, 2 chances to enter the Eastern District, worth their weight in gold. I owed all this to Landon. Without him, I would have perished in the second wave of zombies back in City B. But in his past life, he was also killed because of Phoebe. Phoebe, oh Phoebe, you truly deserved to die. Whether it was my muttering that worked. The next morning, as I queued for my boxed meal and was on my way back, Phoebe stopped me. She said she wanted to talk. I didn't see what we had to discuss, but I followed her anyway. In a quiet alley, Phoebe got straight to the point and demanded my entry spot. To be honest, you won't be of any help inside. With me there, the research would progress much smoother, and we could strive to develop an antidote sooner, contributing to the survival of all humanity. Using this rhetoric to persuade me, Phoebe must have thought I was a fool. I smiled slightly. If you're so important, then why didn't they give you a transit card? Phoebe was left speechless, glaring at me. I'm not afraid of offending Phoebe. The relationship between Phoebe and me can only be described as irreconcilable. I'm not worried about losing face with her. Besides, we were planning to enter the city today, and whether we would have the chance to meet again depended on if Phoebe would still be alive by then. As I turned to leave, I was suddenly choked from behind. I nearly passed out from the momentary suffocation, but I reacted quickly, elbowing her in the ribs and struggling desperately to free myself. So that was your plan, Phoebe? No wonder you lured me to such a secluded place, thinking if persuasion failed, you'd resort to murder to eliminate the witness. I was fired up and immediately started fighting her, but Phoebe was not as frail as she appeared. She must have learned some fighting techniques and was clearly well prepared, pulling out a baseball bat from nowhere. In that situation, I was at a disadvantage. The baseball bat came swinging down on me, and I couldn't fight back. Just then, a cat's meow sounded overhead, and Lucky leaped from the wall, pouncing on Phoebe and clinging fiercely to her face. Phoebe screamed sharply. I seized the opportunity to grab the baseball bat and struck her hard on the back of her head. With a thud, Phoebe fell to the ground. I vented my anger with a few more swings before picking up Lucky and running off. Landon had already packed and was waiting for me to return from getting food. I didn't wait for him to ask questions, quickly saying, "I got into a fight with Phoebe. Let's run before she comes after us." Phoebe probably couldn't chase us, but she was allied with Levi. Together, the two of us couldn't stand a chance against Levi. I stuffed Lucky into my bag and pulled Landon towards the checkpoint. We passed through smoothly and entered the eastern part of the city. The days that followed were uneventful, almost like when we first entered the base. Landon joined the development project for the virus antibody, working in a completely enclosed environment, barely seeing anyone. Meanwhile, I found a menial job in the inner city, earning some credits to take care of cats and dogs. However, the overall situation was improving. Soon, a specialized medicine for the virus was developed. It was mass-produced and distributed to the survivors in the base just before the third wave of the undead. Later, the base opened up. People no longer feared infection and took proactive measures, eventually reclaiming control of the city. Life and spring returned to the land. To this day, I still don't know how Lucky managed to escape, find me, and help turn the tide in the battle, but that scratch was severe. It blinded one of Phoebe's eyes, or at least injured it. Given the scarcity of medical supplies, she couldn't save her. That cat was worth keeping. I saw Phoebe again later. She suffered from severe amnesia and no longer recognized me. She wandered the streets in a daze, harassed by children throwing fruit peels at her, chased everywhere. Paige was still with Lawson, not living well, often beaten and bruised, but she didn't leave him, keeping a low profile and enduring humiliation, a far cry from her former demeanor as a spoiled young lady. With much to be rebuilt, it's a time that calls for able-bodied adults. Supporting oneself isn't difficult. However, she had lost the courage to try and preferred to be someone else's dependent, humbly begging for food. As for Landon, I hadn't seen him in half a year. He's a busy man, contributing significantly to humanity in an important position. I packed my belongings, took Lucky and Coco, and returned to City B. The capital was certainly nice, but I didn't want to stay. I yearned for a simpler life. The fortress, converted from a cold storage facility, remained sturdy, but because it had been uninhabited for so long, the yard was overgrown with weeds. I cleaned the house, repaired the electrical circuits, cleared some wasteland outside, and scattered some old seeds, hoping they would take root and sprout. Occasionally, I would drive to the city of B to scavenge useful supplies, tools, clothes, and some toys, which I brought back for Lucky and Coco to play with. One evening, as I drove home, I found the front gate open. Had someone broken in? Silently, I pulled a spear from the car and stealthily entered. Inside, the lights were on and a steaming meal was laid out on the table. Landon was sitting cross-legged on the floor, grooming Lucky. I stood at the doorway, stunned. Landon looked up, squinting and flashing a white smile. "Hi, welcome home."